I wrote a meta org that I somehow completely lost.
Oh no.
I really want to get a hold of it.
Yeah.
He's got them all. That's exciting.
Harbor Town is an all-new
Especially if you're
series
gonna do a
from
Dutch
Miniature
episode
Building
too.
Authority,
That would be
the
fun.
leader in tabletop
Yeah, I
gaming.
really hope
scene.
that happens.
Unique,
So many talented
flexible,
people. I don't know how many triads they
Harbor
went
Town
through. It was a
will
lot
take
though.
games.
Like I was mentioning on my Facebook, it had a worse turnover than McDonald's.
Oh, and of course,
Who's the
here
it was
comes
a big
Casey.
region.
Want to say hello?
We had a total of 5 triads, I think.
Hi, Casey.
Hi, Casey.
Casey, because the boxes are perfect size now, if you want to stay on and ask questions live and while on Twitch as well, I'm fine with that. It doesn't shrink anyone else's picture. Can you hear me? Bueller?
Yeah?
What's up, Dan?
Hey.
Sure, what's up? Plus, I have to see your face for something, you'll see.
You talking to me?
Yes!
Yes.
Yes, I am. Yes, I. Of course, I am. Dun, dun,
Yeah, I
dun.
want to thank you, Casey, for facilitating this. I'm
thank you.
here because Casey reached out.
That is awesome because, hey, if we could go through every single one, that would be fantastic. And then,
Yeah, absolutely.
and then bring you back to.
You guys are kind of double back.
And then Casey, like, bring them back to abuse them in a D&D game while I'm DMing, right? Oh, I'm sorry, Casey. That's in a week and a half.
Good fun though.
It's gonna be great.
I think you guys are good value because not only can you talk about is it Zeif or Zeif? Because that's the first question everyone always wants to ask.
That was the first question we asked ourselves.
Yeah.
I pronounce it Z.
I always
We
thought
No one knows.
I was an early proponent for Zeif, but everyone just went Zeif, and we went with what people were saying. That was really what it came down to. Almost everyone pronounced it Zeif from just seeing the word, and we went with that.
makes sense. So if you guys focus on Zeif from one show, Jay could have you back for Duchy of Ernst.
We're gonna talk a little bit. We're gonna talk a little bit about that.
Yeah,
I think.
we can't really talk about Zeif without talking a bit about Duchy.
Yeah, absolutely. The history aspect and whatnot.
But yeah, there's definitely like long-term triad members of the Duchy you'll want to get on. I was there for a few months, I think, at best, before Zeif I moved to Zeif, got created.
I'm all in for that. That would be great.
Oh, I can see someone's calling out as a Zeif guy. Yeah.
I think we actually had a vote. We had a vote.
That's Gary
at one point.
Maybe we did.
Pluffett
Yeah.
Pluffett Smedger's Gary Hooligan. So
Yep.
We
good for you,
definitely
Gary.
did we used the Yahoo group polls for things like that, so I wouldn't be surprised if we did a poll for how do we want to pronounce it.
I like Zeif personally.
Zeif, yeah. That's how I like it as well.
Hard to know.
Yeah.
Hard to know.
Language, they're fluid. Languages are fluid.
Yeah, I mean Gygax never came around to tell us. So.
We learned about the one that really shocked us was Ouija, and Leonard Lakofka says it's pronounced it's his deity Ouija, like the Ouija board.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Didn't know
Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
It was shocking when he said that. But I was like,
I mean that
can't
was
argue.
I remember
it's
the
just-
Nair Dive Nerdiv
yeah,
debate as well.
lots of them are like that, and the cool thing is that I say every one of them wrong. So with my South Jersey dialect. So, I say them all.
well, I just want to come on and say hi and wish you guys good luck and a good show. Thank you, John and Corey and Chris for responding. I guess the old AOL to Yahoo Groups system is still working 20 years
Nice.
later. I don't know if that's scary or not.
Yeah. I mean, we used to use like ICQ and stuff to communicate.
Yeah.
So we're going through everything eventually.
My D&D group this weekend was just discussing the difference between Fantasy Grounds and rolling on Yahoo Dice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yahoo Dice, yeah.
It's
wanna
that
remote-
southern South Ulick accent. Yes, it is good, Katana. It's that no one understanding what the hell I'm saying. So, yep.
So is that
Okay.
what do you know what Living Greyhawk region New Jersey was in?
Oh
back in
yeah,
the
it was
day?
Keeland, wasn't it?
was
PA,
Keeland?
Delaware,
I don't know.
Jersey,
I don't-
because they're still doing Greyhawk Reborn, I believe, and I believe that was it.
That's why they concentrated on Keoland afterwards.
Yeah, I think so. I think so, and
And do you know what Sweden was back in the day?
It was ID or Neri, but it was not only Sweden, it was Norway and Denmark as well, I think. And
Glory,
Finland
how do you
too.
pronounce your
Yeah.
name? Flegel or Flegel?
Legal.
Flegel, okay.
Legal.
Like Smeagol.
Yeah.
German.
Yeah.
What's it got in its pockets?
Here comes a new ad. The real new ad.
Okay.
No, that's not it.
Oh.
That's not it. Oh my god, I hit the wrong button and I almost gave it away. Oh my god. Here we go.
Ooh.
New NBA.
You can't have a secret
Lord,
button there.
Lord.
but
Oh
you
my
press it
gosh,
right
yeah,
away.
I almost gave it all away.
If you have a secret button in there, you'll press it right away.
Of
so-
course I do. I always do that. Yeah, NBA's really stepping up with some cool stuff. They did the vid and
That looks amazing.
yeah.
Yeah, these look great.
Yeah, they were my first sponsor. I've been using their stuff since 2000, and I have a majority of all that there. Not the figures, but we got more figures than just that. But yeah, we have almost all that we have. So yeah, it's pretty.
Even has like a dire hog in there. I
Yeah,
saw.
I'll run that a second time because we got a minute
I
ahead.
think Gary is onto something that the Altamir was founded by a flump.
You never know. You never know. With the way
Books and
things are
stench
going.
cows.
Oh, you never know, man. Here.
The Lucky Kraken.
Yeah, I have that piece. It's really nice. So yeah, it's great. So Kirk from NBA put it together. I said, Kirk, send it to me. I'll add the music in the background and some add things around. He's like, okay, and so to get it used. So yeah, really nice stuff. It really shows it up and close and personal. So here we go. Yeah, just welcome screen. Welcome everyone. Gonna have a fun one tonight. So you got some people still coming on.
Has the Edge browser issue been resolved? Do you want to tell people about that?
The what?
Yeah, the browser issue.
The browser.
Well, yeah, because almost everyone's updated it. If you're running the old version of whatever the Edge, it just doesn't work in Twitch anymore. So you really got to go to the new version of, or use Google, or use even
Firefox.
yeah, the other one's working pretty well. So.
I mean, don't you just download the Twitch app? That's what I do.
A lot of people do, but for me, I don't want to have it running while I'm streaming. It's
Right,
a
it's a
source
hog.
hog. So. Righty. Look at that. We usually start 1 minute early too. So, what settlement is burning in the distance? Is it Spine Castle, Jason? That's funny. I think that's a joke, right?
Remember that was someone commented on that in Dragon Magazine or something, but they had it. There was a discussion, but now I forgot where it was. But I think it's somewhere from Uni or somewhere during the Greyhawk Wars when I used it. But that might be wrong. That's something I read like 2 years ago.
My vote would be the destruction of Castle Arconsomme during the Greyhawk
Yeah.
War by the IU.
Yeah.
Alright, today. You wanted to see my face for something, or should I pop off?
I think you're fine because you sound like I got to add another
Yeah.
row. So.
Casey, it's awesome to have
Yeah.
you around. So,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Living Greyhawk. You're one of the experts here. So
And we're going to come on one
that.
I'm definitely not. So
Public, what's up? Guest audio is low, guys, so try and speak up a little bit if you can, okay?
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
But remember, we're probably hearing over the music. When the music's going, I think we'll be okay here. So good evening, everyone. Another great Legends and Lore we have in store for you. I'm Jay, Kid Lord Gazumba, as you all know, and I got Anna Meyer and Greyhawk
Hey.
Mike Bridges.
Howdy.
We have 3 special guests tonight. And let me make sure I say all of these correctly. Upper left-hand corner, John Dawes, right?
Yeah, that's right.
John Dawes, upper right-hand corner, Corey Flegel.
Hello.
And lower left-hand corner, Chris Slater. All
Hey,
from the Sultanate of whatever, Zeif. How do you guys pronounce it?
We go with Zeif now.
Zeif.
Yeah.
Zeif.
Yeah.
This is going to be a blast because I guarantee you a lot of people who are watching have no idea about what happened here, and they're pretty excited about it. So why don't you all just give us a little? We'll start with John. Give us a little background, playing, history, what you're doing now. Spend a couple minute or two, and welcome and thank you for coming on, John. Take it over.
Yeah, thanks. I guess I started in first edition AD&D. Didn't have the D&D boxes, but definitely got a start in the early 80s. Playing a little bit in junior high, but really got into it in high school. We basically played every lunch break. Big early personal favorite was the Saltmarsh series. Really loved those adventures, and I'll talk about it later, but some of that definitely sparked what we did in Zeif.
Nice.
As of today, by career, I'm a data analyst. I like my math, but I also really like stories, and so I think role-playing games is kind of a perfect amalgam of the two things that I love. And I think that got me into D&D in the first place, and eventually got me that little bit of a spot in the 15 minutes of fame that was living Greyhawk.
Well, hopefully tonight will give you a little more fame too. So
Yeah.
we're looking, I'm excited that you're all on. And she says it's the first time you watch on Twitch, but first time ever being on one, right?
That's right. Usually watching other people playing video games, but I'm not good at those video games, so I don't stream them myself. But yeah, pretty cool to be on here. I feel like a legend. Maybe a little bit of lore as well.
That's it. Absolutely. That's why the show's called Legends and Lore. Definitely, we are so excited to have you all on. Corey, tell us a little background, please.
I started back in 87. Red Box, first thing I started with. Been playing ever since then, all the way up through 5th edition. Used to own my own game store, actually, up here in Calgary. Shut that down a little while ago. Now I'm manager with Cineplex, and I actually run a couple of LARPs. So I really am still the ultimate nerd.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Still playing D&D?
Yeah, I actually just finished a 10-hour session with my group on Sunday.
Beautiful.
Nice.
That's fantastic. I always have to ask this. Playing 5e, 1e, 2e, 3.5?
We're doing 5e, yeah.
Okay. And here we go. Here's the $1 million question. What setting?
We're doing the Dungeon of the Mad Mage in Forgotten Realms. So.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, cool. Excellent. Well, thank you for coming on, Corey.
No problem.
And Chris.
Yeah, similar story. Started young, picked up a red box for like 75 cents at a garage sale, and then learned the ropes from a cousin who was, an old hand at it, and kind of been playing ever since. It's like 30 years of gaming history. Got involved with the Living Greyhawk stuff here in Vancouver after meeting John and doing kind of local convention stuff. And these days we play in like a number of weekly games, and no D&D though, as we were talking about before the show. We kind of played it for a bit, and then now we're on to other things. I run a monthly game day where I run indie games and Kickstarter games and stuff like that.
Cool. Hey man, there's so many great things out there now.
Absolutely.
So many Kickstarters, so little time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention Casey's hanging out tonight too.
Yeah.
We have a special surprise for Casey. Everyone.
Oh Lord.
It is very special.
Should I start rolling saving throws now?
No.
Yep.
But I have to do this. I have one bone. It's minor, and it's kind of funny to pick with Chris.
What's that?
So I'm watching a Facebook chat going on, and all of a sudden Chris links, "Hey, here's this guy we're going to be on the show with," and it's an interview with Robert Wardall, and I'm like, "You got to be kidding me!" It never goes away, guys. It never goes away. It never goes away.
Is that the guy I thought you were you?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. It just at conventions, everyone says it's, hey, you're right. You're that guy,
You're
right?
that guy.
Yeah.
No. So minor thing, but hey, thanks all guys for coming on. Let's go over, I guess, maybe a touchy subject first, and whoever of you wants to take this. What Ernst first, and to synopsize what happened, and that led you into Zeif.
Yeah, I'll grab this one if you want.
Yeah, please.
I was perhaps I was actually triad for Ernst sort of just before we got to have Zeif. So basically, there's a bunch of geographic locations that correspond to countries in the Greyhawk world. Some of them are smaller, some of them are larger. You being out there in Jersey, you'll know that there's a lot of population, a lot of big cities around where you are. So because it was all population based, we would have a whole bunch of different regions in the New England area. So you could literally get in your car and drive to 3 or 4 different regions in one day from Jersey. I live in Vancouver, so Vancouver is sort of the southwestern tip of Canada. If you're going to go that way, and our region was really large because our population obviously is not nearly the same as what you've got over there on the East Coast. Alaska, all the way down to Oregon, was all one region. And in Canada, the whole West, so from the north to the south, all the way through more than half of the actual size of Canada. So we're talking the provinces of Alberta, British Columbia, Alberta, and Saskatchewan, plus the territories that are above them, Northwest Territories, Nunavut, and Yukon Territories, which are literally bigger. That whole area is bigger than almost every country in the world.
Yeah.
And we were all one region. So if I wanted to travel to another region, because I used up all my adventures in our region, because there was only like 8 a year or something like that, maybe 10. I had to travel a really long way. I'm not sure if this was as bad if you were in Alberta, because I think if you went south from Alberta, you could go to Montana, which I think was the county of Ernst.
No, actually, it was all the way. We had to go to Utah to get into
the Pale. No, it wasn't the Pale. It was.
Should have been the Pale.
Yeah, should have been the Pale. What was it? I don't remember. Yeah, I went to Utah myself.
14-hour drive to get to another region.
Yeah.
Nope.
It was gross.
So Corey came up with a mighty proposal. I'll let Corey roll out from here.
Yeah, so our play numbers were actually really high throughout the region. Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver were really, really high participations. Our group called the Pirates of the Plains, we had twice a month. We did 2 adventures per month with 12 tables of D&D players. So we were massive. And so when we finally talked to Wizards about it, we were like, come on, it's really tough. We have a really large play area. We have a ton of people that can do the work to get these modules out, because we had to produce 8 modules. We had to help with the meta region and stuff. So at first we approached them with a company the region called Radek, which is this little sliver of land off on the, I think, west side of Greyhawk. It was called a radical proposal. I think it was somewhere around a 50 or 60 page proposal. It had to include a module, a full-blown module in it. It had to include all the meta orgs we were thinking about making, all this information we had to get out. We had to build a backstory for it, because if you look at Radek in the Greyhawk synopsis, it's got a paragraph. So we put a ton of work into it, and we sent it to them, and they're like, "Oh, that's cool." No, and we're like, "Oh," they're like, "But you can have the Sultanate of Zeif." And we're like, "The what? Of where?" So we're like, so everyone just kind of grabbed their books, started flipping through. We're like, "It's over here." All right, you know what? We'll take whatever region you give us. And they're like, "All right, have your region." And we're like, "Cool." So we just fired a ton of work over a few months into meta orgs and launching mods and all this stuff. It was a Herculean style effort, but it came together great. Like I said, we had a ton of authors that were super excited about getting our own region. That meant for, like, in Calgary, we could hop down into Montana, which is only a 5-hour drive, which sounds crazy for some people, but for us, it's nothing. To hit another region now, because Dutchy was its own, plus a meta region, because we weren't part of that anymore either. So it was wonderful for us to get a lot more play area.
Yeah.
What year was that, Corey?
2006.
Thank you. I was going to say.
Well, I think you made the proposal in 2005.
Yeah.
Wow.
But we got the region for the year of 2006. We were informed of it in 2005, so we had a little bit of time to get stuff ready for it, but not a lot of time. We didn't have a whole year to get our year's worth of modules ready.
And when you were doing this pitch, this fantastic Radek pitch, you were also still working on Duchy of Ernst stuff, or just playing at that point?
Most of us were just playing at that point. I think John was the only one who was actually on the Duchy Triad at that point. So it was more just playing and kind of working on trying to get other stuff rolling in the meantime, while we're trying to make this proposal to Wizards. And you got to remember, this is back before the internet and stuff really was going. So we were literally like FedExing, like purulating proposals in printed form.
Wow.
To headquarters. We're like, "Here, please read this," and they're like flipping through it. So it wasn't like just emailing a document. It was a ton of work. So,
and it also caused ripples here in Vancouver, at least in our scene, because not everybody wanted to go to Zeif.
Yeah.
Right? There was a lot of people invested in Ernst. They had characters born and raised there.
So there's some political machinations where you had to get people on board.
For sure.
Yeah, we had to verify that there were no active groups in Saskatchewan and the territories, because we couldn't actually pull the proposal through if there was groups that we could not consult. So it was, like I said, it was the guys out in Vancouver, it was Calgary, Edmonton, for the most part, and there was like a minor group in Medicine Hat, but it was easy to get them on board.
Victoria as well, yeah.
Victoria, for sure.
A lot of convincing from people, and it was not just as easy as just saying, "Hey, we're a new region, off we go." There was definitely some grumpy complaints for sure. So
all on Yahoo.
Grumpy D&D players, say it as it goes.
All to play a game.
Guilty.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
One quick follow-up on this fascinating divestiture. Was this after Radek had already been experimented with by Hawaii, or was that before? Because didn't Hawaii get Radek?
This is
what my list is.
Yeah, I guess they thought, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's give it to
somebody else.
Thanks for all your work.
Jeez.
In retrospect, though, I'm super happy we got Zeif.
I agree. It gave such a different flavor to us. I mean, out in Calgary, we're, always the cowboys and all this stuff. And then we're like, "Okay, you're going to be a sultan." We're like, "We're doing what?" Like,
Yeah. And it was interesting too, because obviously there were not only the regions, but there were the meta regions. So you had, I can't remember what the meta region was called for the Duchy of Ernst, but I believe it included Nyrond.
Yep.
I can't remember what else. But it was all very.
Was that the Velderweide trade route?
Yeah,
That's
No,
right.
that's-
That's right.
that's what we were, I think.
No, we were the what was it called again? I don't remember what our meta region is
Meta
called.
region, I don't even remember either. That was
Wasn't the VTF?
The VTF.
Velvet
Yeah.
to Flick Falls VTF.
That's right.
Trade route. Yep.
But it was
Pale.
basically
The Pale was the other one.
yeah,
That's Nyrond and her Environs or something like that.
Mhm,
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so our meta region was all of the Baklunish nations. So Ket was Ontario, and Tusmet, or Ket was Ontario, Newfoundland. Someone had mentioned Newfoundland in the chat. So that was Ket. And basically every province that we didn't mention was part of ours was part of Ket, except for Quebec, which was Tusmet.
Yeah.
So we had this, that was a meta region. And so each meta region had a circle member that you talked to. Ours was Tim Sek, who I never met in real life, I don't believe, but he was always easy to work with. Pretty hands-off, laissez-faire. Got us stuff done really quick when we handed it to him late. So can only say thanks for that. But yeah, I know Chris traveled to Ontario during that time and got to play in Ket, because I think he's from that area. He went with Jason one time and came back with some Ket certificates.
Yeah, and I barely remember that. I just remember our trip down to Oregon to play. That might have been in Dutchy days.
Yeah. A lot of trips.
Did you meet Brian Blum? Was Brian Blumklotz involved?
Yep.
So you met Brian? Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
I think he's on my Facebook friends list still,
right,
actually.
Brian is a regular. He comes on the show occasionally, and he and Christoph run the Greyhawk Discord. I'm going to link that for you guys. I know you're all in there.
Yeah.
So, but let me hit that up in case we have anyone new. So there's Greyhawk Online and then the Discord. But Brian's. Great.
Haven't talked to
I'm
Brian
glad you
in
met him.
ages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
We
say
have
hello.
used the game.
He's Saracenus on Discord, so he's one of the greater gods. So
Nice.
yeah, just say hello to him. Absolutely, I know he'd love to hear from you. That's great. So all right, let's ask some questions here. We'll start with Anna or Mike. You guys got something?
Well, first I must ask, first of all, the Zeif group has made so much awesome material. I'm just blown away by maps and gazetteers and stuff. You were only on for a couple of years. How did you manage to catch up so fast?
Enthusiasm. Our people were just chomping at the bit to get to write. That was, I think, another one of the quote problems of the Duchy of Ernst being so large and having such a huge player base, that we also had a huge writer base, and there's only so much that you can do. All of this, Chris wrote some stuff for Meta.org for the Duchy of Ernst, but basically there were a lot of people who wanted to compete for those writing spots at your 8 adventures a year, and then maybe some mini missions for interactives. There's only so much to get to write, and I know a lot of people in our community, like just Vancouver alone and Calgary alone. There were at least 4 or 5 people in each of those places who wanted to write a mod, and so we knew we'd have no problems, and we were correct in that for sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm just amazed because it came so late, but still you managed to get almost as much stuff at several of the other regions that it's like Gazetteer, and the map is fantastic. It's some of the best that really helped me mapping it. And another interesting question, did you feel like Zeif and the Baklunish West was kind of culturally and campaign-wise kind of way out in the boondocks, and you were away from all the action in the more kind of core of the setting?
Yeah, core stuff.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
But it also gave us a freedom because we weren't really worried about everyone else. We were kind of just doing our own thing.
That's true. Yeah.
Writers together. We got, I remember spending several hours with Microsoft Excel building the adventure records for everything, doing the maps in Photoshop and all that other stuff. It was really, like I said, a lot of work, but it was fun work because it was, stuff that we were able to go, this is ours. This is what we put out.
Yeah.
And I think, like I said, we did a really good quality work because everyone was super excited. Once they said, yeah, Zeif is a go, we're like, all right, let's start making it happen.
Yeah, the gas pedal went down.
Yeah, we fired a lot of stuff out the door. So
yeah,
and
cool.
I just want to give a big shout out to Jake and Warren and Brent who did that document, that player's guide. I've been flipping through it like the last couple of days, and there is so much material in this thing. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just made up so much history. Just so much. This was never there. No one gave it to us, and everyone immediately accepted it as canon.
I think they pulled a lot of it from the adventures and the meta orgs that people had been working on as well. Like there's references in here to my meta org that it's like, whoa, hey.
Yeah, the Dust Splash.
Cool.
Yeah.
Is there a place people can get this player's guide?
There was a place online. I don't know if it's still up or not.
Well, Chris was kind enough to give it to me, so.
Yeah, I got it to you, but I think
say otherwise we have to
bribe someone.
we have to get it out there somehow. So
it's very murky. I keep asking Britt about these things.
Gary Julian just linked something in the chat.
Yeah, there. That's Jake. That's Jake's site there. Mendahu. That's his name.
So we probably
tripod.
We probably want to link that up to Greyhawk Online at some point. So Gary, thanks, and cool.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think you've discussed it before, but one of the heartbreaking things about this is the inability to publish this stuff. I know that there's not only problems because you would want to get a hold of all the authors, and there's also the fact that all of the adventures, at least the later ones, all the ones for our 3 years in Zeif, have all this stuff quoted from splat books from 3rd edition.
Absolutely.
And that's all copyrighted by other people. I mean, we have a copyright mark on them and stuff like that. But if you were to try and put that together and invest in it and try and sell it, it would be a lawyer's nightmare, I'm sure.
Yeah, when I was working on VK meta stuff, I was stealing so much from IU's The Evil that I was barely quoting and citating or making citations because I was like, well, this isn't a retail project. I'm doing this for the campaign. Wizards in the RPGA owns the material I'm stealing from. And now 10 years later, I'm like, crap. There's no way I can share this because I don't even know what I plagiarized in putting together the documents for the campaign.
Yeah, very much the same.
Thankfully, maybe what's these fan creation policies now lenient enough that if you release it as for free, then that might be a way out, so to speak. So,
yeah, I mean, I love our campaign that we created for Zeif. We had multiple storylines. We had basically every year we had a 1-year arc. We also had a 2-year arc. For the first 2 years, and then we had a 3-year arc. And that, had it gone on, the intention was to keep repeating it. So at the end of every 3 years, we'd start a new 3-year arc. Every 2 years, we'd start a new 2-year arc, and always we'd have a 1-year arc that was 3 or 4 adventures, and then we'd have just a few one-offs dotted in here and there. And it was planned that way from the beginning to be like seasons of a TV show with really coherent plot lines. And
so what were they? You're teasing us.
Well,
yeah, some cool examples of.
I have to ask a question first. Who created all the background information that we're showing now? I love it. I mean, it's great. Here, let me get to this.
The backgrounds.
Yeah, here. Yeah, you got educated in the harem.
Oh, right.
Yeah, the backgrounds in the meta org. I'm not sure. I don't remember.
I'm going to say group effort because I think we talked a lot about these ones.
It's true.
So these are the ones I have. Educated in the harem, and they got requirements, and you have some special abilities or some things off of that. Former slave. Okay.
Yep.
Half orc of Antal. Did I say that right? Antal?
So, yep.
Who knows?
Coalborn.
Right.
All right. They were like a theater troupe, dance theater troupe, I think.
All right. Member of a bay.
So the Bay are the nobles.
Okay. Beautiful. Member of a fallen bay.
Well,
Yeah.
self-explanatory.
Yeah, absolutely. Orphan in the Sultanate.
Yeah, sucks to be you.
A Panem, which is
Horse tribesman.
yeah,
Oh
horse
yeah,
tribe,
the,
absolutely.
from the south of Zeus. Yep.
And a trained in the harem performer to end it all off, to spice it all up. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So very nicely done. It's like,
Yeah,
oh,
and these
wow.
would come up in the adventures too, which was really great, intended right from the start. Backgrounds were sort of a new thing, I think, at that point in Living Greyhawk. We didn't have those in the first year. We didn't even have really meta orgs in the first year, but meta orgs came before the backgrounds. Backgrounds were sort of added later. Maybe it was year 5 when they first came out. I can't remember. But the idea was you get to make, if you're making a brand new character, you can now sort of have these things to differentiate you from another, a human fighter from some other place.
I'm not even sure if we really adopted that in the IU's meta region, because it doesn't sound familiar to me. We just had the meta orgs, and you could say, well, I was born in Rookroost or whatever, but I don't think we had anything this detailed. That almost looks like a 5th edition background.
Yeah, they're pretty good. And they're very characterful. Definitely. The funny thing was that we had 3 different ones related to the harem.
Yeah, oh, come on, man. It's funny.
I'm pretty sure Andreas wrote a lot of the harem stuff. He liked the performance stuff. And I'm pretty sure he wrote a lot of that. I know one of the other guys, John, he wrote the Urzaries meta org.
Oh, right. Yeah, I don't have that one.
I actually still have that one. I'm using it in my LARP actually for High Ogres. So
Cool.
Right on.
Yeah, the Urzaries are cool. Obviously, that's a nod to the Janissaries of history.
Yeah.
But in this, the Urzaries are orcs. So this is a bunch of orcs. Obviously, you could not play an orc in the campaign, but you could play a half orc because that was a playable race. And so it was a way to make your half orc be really cool and have a lot of flavor that you don't often get from your half orcs elsewhere that are supposed to be like barbarians. These are really civilized, almost like I would compare them to like the Star Trek Next Generation version of the Klingons, like very much honor. And these are the people that the Sultan is trusting with his country's life.
The half orcs.
Half orcs.
That is cool.
Yeah, but the half orcs tended to be the leaders because they're a little bit smarter.
Yeah.
So
And there was history there. There's a history for that, like why that happened. There was a sultan in the past who felt that, there was one particular half orc that kind of was super honorable and kind of made this happen for his whole entire species, basically, or race.
Yeah, and you would say there's more half orcs in the region than there are any of the other any demi-humans.
Wow.
There's more half orcs than elves, gnomes, all that stuff, dwarves combined. There's I think we said something like 10% of the populace of Zeif has at least some orc in their background.
Actually, I think there's more half orcs than Sului's humans.
Yeah.
That was the history.
Yeah, and I guess that's the deep dive into the history of the region. And this is one of the things that makes it really interesting that we split from the Duchy of Ernst. Because the Duchy of Ernst was, it's dominated by Sului's nobles. And they have meta-orgs associated with, if you want to be a noble, you have to be this race. You're Suluis. They certainly had Flan and Iridian people in there, but it was really dominated by the Suluis nobles and their machinations. Way back before anyone was actually playing Greyhawk. Of course, you had the war between the Baklunish and Suluis empires that resulted in I forget, something devastation and
the
reign of colorless fire.
Devastation and the reign of colorless fire. Yeah.
Right, and so these are arch enemy arch enemy superpowers that destroyed each other basically,
Yeah.
and are still just rising from the ashes. So we ended up being in a region that was the enemies, racial enemies of the region that we used to be in. And so there was definitely meant to, and we definitely played this up, that there was this mistrust, Sulawese people in this Bakloonish country. The other thing was that Zeif, the other regions in the meta region all used to be Zeif. Tuzmet used to be part of Zeif. Ket used to be part of Zeif. They were provinces. So Zeif is an empire on the wane, that we got down to our current set of borders, which is still reasonably large, through a bunch of really idiot sultans in the past making bad decisions. Now our current sultan, Murad the Proud, as of the time of the setting, was pretty good sultan. We wanted him. I think we talked about this because we had basically free reign to do whatever we wanted. We had some names of some characters, but we didn't know who was going to be good and who was going to be bad, who was going to be competent, who was going to be terrible. So I think me and Corey and Mike Hackstead, who was the third original Triad member, we discussed this at the very beginning before, we started writing the modules and everything. Basically, is okay. Who are the people in power, and how are they doing? We decided we wanted the Sultan to be steady, like he's doing his job well. He's an honorable guy. He's doing his best for his legacy and for his country. But then we had these other characters that were named the Grim Vizier, the Matron Sultana, who had their own ideas of how things should be, and they were powerful in their own right. And so these were sort of these were sort of major powers in the court.
John, were they names from the Living Greyhawk Gazetteer that you guys then had to flesh out?
Yes.
Probably. And
You
what's
guys
interesting,
use this.
yeah, there you go.
Oh yeah.
What's interesting for me to hear is that you guys didn't want to just wholesale change the NPCs. There were some regions which were notorious for Triad members got in there, killed the king or killed the Grand Vizier or whatever, and put in some other schmuck, to take that role. And that happened. And it sounds like you guys were like, no, let's stick with these guys and flesh them out. So that's really neat to hear.
Yeah, we felt it was canon. What we saw there, that's canon. We get to add to it. We might change it in the future, but in general, and this comes also through conversations with Tim Seck, our circle guy, we weren't really supposed to go just kill off a major NPC. That was not supposed to be allowed. So I presume everyone who actually did that in the region talked to their circle rep about it. If they didn't, shame on you. Yeah, we did, by the end of the campaign, we had made some major changes, and we had permission from Tim to do that.
Very cool. Did you guys ever do any cross regionals with the other member regions of the meta region?
I co-wrote one adventure with a guy from Montreal, Daniel Maynard, I think his name was. And that,
I have that one.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah,
his name.
It was called All This for a Wedding. It was one of the late ones in year one, and this was an adventure that we wrote for both of our regions. So it wasn't a meta regional, but it was a regional adventure in both of our regions. So
oh, cool! I'd never heard of that happening.
Yeah, I think it was the only time I've ever heard of it happening as well. But it was pretty cool because our regions we're bordering in real life, but really far away in real life, right? I've never been to Quebec, although I've been stuck in Montreal traffic trying to go to Ottawa from Boston. But their region was pretty cool. He showed me some of the stuff that they've been up to, and we kind of talked, develop that stuff. It was interesting for me too. We did a lot of phone calls, and most of the time when I'd been working with people, it had been over email. But Daniel was visually impaired, like quite severely. So it was much easier for him to talk about the stuff on the phone. I ended up doing a lot of the typing, getting stuff on paper. It was pretty cool too, because I used to work in websites, and we always had this, you have to design your website so that people who can't see can use their readers. And I would hear over the phone, I could hear stuff that I had typed being read to him by this kind of speak and spell kind of voice. That was a really cool experience. He was an awesome guy. I haven't talked to him since, but it was a great experience working with him on that adventure. And I hope they enjoyed it in Quebec as much as people enjoyed it here. It was that was an interesting thing. I think it would be cool to have people from Tasman on here as well, because that was an interesting thing about them, is that they had to do every adventure twice. Because they had, they had to do it in French, and there were French versions of the certs and everything.
Wow. Well, reach out to them. Get them in touch with Jay.
Yeah,
you still have those connections.
Yeah.
Because we rushed this one. We were going to do one a month, and then when you guys were so excited, I'm like, let's do two in this month, you know.
Nice.
So absolutely, I was so looking forward to it.
That was an infamous adventure, by the way. I just wanted to mention one thing about it that was
go for it.
Super infamous. Was you could become a eunuch in that adventure.
That man's a eunuch, not a eunuch.
Either at the beginning or at the end.
Okay, wow.
If you did it at the beginning, it was voluntary. I won't say
silence.
too much. And we'll move on to your question.
Those were the days, in adventuring,
So
life's rough.
Wow, So Christoph just put down, get them all in touch with Greyhawk Online. Christoph, all three of the gentlemen here, they're all in the Discord now. So we're just going to try and get this data all linked up and for Greyhawk Online. Absolutely.
For sure.
Can you imagine choosing to be a eunuch? Oh my gosh, that's crazy. All right,
it was amazing. Yeah, their people were really dedicated to the culture. And for some people saying, I would become a eunuch so that I can protect the daughter of the Sultan, which is what you ended up doing. That was perfectly acceptable for some people's characters, and that was awesome.
Yeah,
it was an honored thing if you chose it, for sure.
Wow, man, crazy, but awesome, definitely.
That's neat hearing about the culture in role playing as opposed to just dice role playing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
actually, that was one of the first things, and I remember coming on to help out with some of the writing and some of the meta org stuff and hearing from John what he and Corey and Mike had planned, like the whole 4 Feet of the Dragon arc, I think was kind of the big selling point early in our transition to Zeif. There was like these 4 Zeif modules called, now I have to remember them all. There's family, honor,
generosity,
piety. That was the last one. Yeah. And so we had a module for each of those 4 Feet of the Dragon, and if you were successful in all of them, you could become a very honored individual.
You say that was an early arc you had?
That was our first year arc. So that was
2006.
4 modules, one and done. Yeah, 2006.
So you were only really active for 3 years.
Yeah, not even a really whole 3 years. We had 2 years where we worked on it, and then we put out the mods, and we were done for the 3rd year. We were told sort of at the end of year 2, get your stuff done as fast as you can for year 3.
I don't even think the last one got put out. Did anybody play that last one? I'm not even sure.
Wow, you guys have a mod that didn't get released?
A hidden gem.
Possibly. I don't know.
Wow. I wonder if that even has made it onto Echo Hawk's list.
Wow.
For those of you who know who Echo Hawk is. So what's confusing to me is you guys are talking about year 1, 2, and 3. And I'm like, oh, they mean 6, 7, and 8.
6, 7, 8, yeah.
Zeifin years.
Yeah.
We used the Baklunish calendar as well instead of CY. We had BH. Yeah. If you look in our modules, we had.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. Every time we did it, we talked about the BH. CY for those from out of town,
Yeah. Well, that's very cool.
That was really cool too. Is like having visitors come up, right? Like people from Ernst or Nyrond and her environs, and having to kind of do these translations and experience, basically having this experience that you're having right now, but with their characters and everything being slightly foreign.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were talking about the curling arena you guys used that you sometimes got kicked off of. So how often did you? That's awesome. How often did you meet for conventions or mini groups? And like, what sizes would you get? So who wants to take that one up?
I'll let Corey start. They had some good cons in Calgary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, we had some really good conventions. I think probably one of the best ones we did, we just called it Camp Con, and everyone grabbed their tents, their trailers, their booze.
That one's infamous.
And we had a few wobbly pops, and then tried to play some D&D over a weekend. And I don't remember much, if John remembers much of when we dragged him out there. He remembers the beginning, but he definitely does not remember the end.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we would end up with 12 plus tables running. We did mostly cons. It was all living stuff at hotel, convention center, or not convention centers, but hotel areas and stuff. And yeah, we had some pretty wild mods. And then like I said, we had battle interactives. So what a battle interactive, for those who don't realize, is multiple tables are fighting on one large area and they can actually affect other tables. And we've had literally one of our players built a ginormous diorama of a wall, and players were trying to defend or attack this gate. And I still remember the high level players, the monsters came out, rolled the high level table, and then looked left, and they could see the low-level table, and they just literally marched across the entire table until they hit another high-level table that actually was able to push them back. It wiped out 3 tables. So when you say
Wow.
TPKs, we had 20, 30 players dying left, right, and center because of this thing. So yeah,
That's awesome.
That is
fun
fantastic.
stuff. Yeah, for
Oh
sure.
my gosh.
Mhm.
So Secret of Oblivion asks, what did you do with how you used the oh my god,
Mokulad.
Mokulad?
Consortium.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Mokulad Consortium was 2 things. It was basically the trade union of the whole area, or
Okay.
it was a trade consortium. But it was also it was also part of a priesthood. Mokul was the god of trade, Beklunish god of trade, and so the people, the priests of Mokul, were appraisers, and they're basically, if you wanted to conduct business in Zeif, you dealt with the Mokulad Consortium, unless it was something trivial. But anything big, definitely any international trade, you're going to be dealing with the Mokulad Consortium. And so if you wanted to be a part of the Mokulad Consortium, we had priestly meta orgs, and one of them was if you were a priest of Mokul, you were automatically part of the Mokulad Consortium, basically. We had, and this was interesting as well, because we, having a good connection to the Duchy of Ernst, but it being quite far away on the map of Orth, we conspired with them to have some Suluese people want to trade with the Mokulad Consortium. And so we started this cross-regional meta-org called the Western Finesse Trading Company. So this was a totally made-up thing that didn't exist in any of the canon. It was largely people from the Duchy of Ernst who wanted to play their characters, their high-level characters in our area. Obviously, there were no high-level Zeif characters at the start. We were starting from level 1. So most of our adventures were catered to low-level characters. I guess that's one other thing I should explain, if you're not aware of this about living Greyhawk, is that you had a home region, as we've established. If you were to play each character had 52 time units in every year that they can use, so roughly a week of our time. If you are to play an adventure in your home region, it costs you 1 of those time units. If you want to play an adventure out of your region, it would cost you 2 time units. And there were other things that could cost you time units as well. Being in a meta org, you had to do some duties for your meta org to keep in good standing. There were also, by that time in the campaign, there were very detailed crafting rules. So if you wanted to, make your own magic wands and stuff like that, there were rules in 3rd edition for doing that. But it would cost you time units as well as money to get that done. So time units were a commodity for each of your character. And once we had the meta orgs up to get benefits and the, the ability to craft items, people were using up their time units super fast. So people were making up many characters. And we had our friends who lived in the Northwestern states come up to play their Duchy of Ernst characters, but also they were coming up making a character who lived in our region. And I did this myself. Obviously, I wasn't allowed to play in our region, being a triad, so I kept my Duchy of Ernst characters. But I went to what were they called, cross-regional conventions, where if your town was pretty close to the border between two regions,
20 miles or something like that.
Yes, yeah. Which Vancouver is. It's close enough to the southern border of Canada that we could do that, and we did. But there were also I went to one that I think was a tri-regional. It was Niron, the Pale, and the Duchy or something. I can't remember which ones, but I went to a tri-regional and I made up a character in every region. Played the level ones, because at that time we also had what they called, and I think this was new as of year 6 of the campaign as well. They had introductory modules. So you were making adventures that were just for level 1 characters to play. If you weren't level 1, you couldn't play them, and it was a really good thing because there were rules about how many levels of monsters and traps and stuff like that could be in different adventures, and you were allowed to bring 4 to 6 players to a table. What they called the average party level, the APL, determined which level of monsters and traps and stuff you were going to face in an adventure when you got there. So you'd show up at your table at the convention and you go, okay, what level is everybody? Usually we'd have this sort of settled in advance. We'd say, we're going to run 3 or 4 or 8 tables of this, get together with people who are roughly around your level.
Mustering.
Yeah. This sometimes took far too long and wasted time we could be playing, but it was important to do.
Well, we weren't using Warhorn like Pathfinder Society does now, probably as much as we should have been back then.
Yeah, we started using Warhorn.
Yeah, we started using Warhorn a lot.
Yeah.
Got better. I still remember you'd have people sit down at a table and you're like, what level are you? 8? Like, we're 4, go away. And they're like, okay.
Well, or you meet in the middle and it's APL 6. The 8th level guy stomps ass. The 4th level guy gets carried out on a stretcher.
Yeah.
But to me, that's real D&D. Like, to segue to Dragonlance, Tika was not a high level character, but she went running around with Karaman. Right? In those books.
That's a terrible analogy, Casey.
Well, hey, she wasn't high level. She just had a frying pan.
I remember, so one of the things we used to do
awesome.
is we always talk to everyone and we always watch people power game their characters and build their min-max guys. So I told everyone in the region, okay, listen, I'm going to write up a set of mods with some other guys and we're going to bring the most broken monsters. You bring your most broken characters. We'll see who wins.
Wow.
And a lot of the time I did, because there was ways you could bring up monsters hit dice right to the point where it would pop into another hit dice. So we had like huge earth elementals
that
bull rush people from the ground up, throw them up in the air, and as the person fell down, they went through their threatened zone, so they got to ground spike them as they smoked them. And I still remember I made a huge demonic mimic out of a bed, and it was in the corner. And one of the guys, my buddy Matt, comes running in this room. And I describe him. He's like, "There's a giant red velvet bed." I'm like, "There sure is." He's like, "I jump on it." And we all went,
Yes.
Yes.
Inside a mimic, and we're like, and everyone roll initiative. They're like, oh man. And
Matt Atwell, right?
I'm jealous because I didn't think of that.
Oh, actually, Matt Coles.
Oh,
Matt
different
Atwell
Matt,
did
okay.
other crazy things too, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I was
So,
gonna say I wouldn't put that past him.
no, I mean, you
Oh, a
know,
half-red dragon mimic. Oh.
a fiendish, huge mimic. So it was brutal. Like it was just nasty.
Yeah, we had
Yeah,
that arc, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to mention that too, exactly, about our arcs. We had people on all sides of the spectrum too, and this was one of the things that we kind of audited before we started, was that, you know, especially I thought here in Vancouver, there are a lot of people like, I take all these skills from my characters and I never get to use them. And so we're like, okay, well, there's so many possibilities for skills in the game. It's hard to really make that happen. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna tell you, in our region, these skills are gonna be important more often than a bunch of other skills.
Cool.
And so we just said right up front, before anyone even made their first level characters, appraise is gonna be important here.
Yep.
If you can take appraise, you should take appraise. And then various other things. I can't remember what all the skills we said.
Animal
take-
handling for
Yeah.
horseback.
Right. Because riding, of course, it was definitely a horse-oriented nation. So we told people to take these things. They're free not to. Obviously, certain classes, it's easier to take these things than others. But we held true to our word, and we made sure that these skills came up over and over again. And we had a lot of trade-oriented adventures where you would be using that appraise skill. And we definitely gave the opportunity to ride, even if you didn't have your own horse. There were definitely opportunities to ride things that were horses and things that were not horses. The other thing was that some people were the opposite. I wouldn't even say the opposite end of the spectrum. In addition to that, some people wanted really, really hard fights, like Corey was saying. And I think that definitely, it wasn't all Calgary, but definitely some of the guys in Calgary, the Pirates of the Plains.
It was Calgary.
It was us. I'll admit it.
Oh yeah, I'm not gonna let Banks off the hook.
Okay, that's fair.
But there were definitely guys who were like, they'd play through an adventure, oh, that was easy, we finished in half an hour or whatever, and be like, okay, we'll but you know, there's a whole bunch of other people that are like, these adventures are so hard, we're getting killed all the time, we never get to level up. So we had both sides of that, and we wanted to cater them. Well, how do we cater to them? Well, tell them in advance. So we made an elite arc. So there's one story arc, it's elite, and we put warning labels on it.
Oh wow!
And
permanent character death.
I think we said permanent character death is not the worst thing that can happen to your character in this game.
Oh my gosh!
Because they were also meant to be the adult-themed dark ones. So we went
dark.
there. We're in a lawful evil nation as it is, basically.
So being a eunuch was not the worst that can happen to a character.
I guess for some people that might be.
It was even worse. Yep.
Well, how about I think we'll let Corey talk about Junior.
Yeah. So it's literally my favorite story arc that we ever created. Basically, the gist of it was, if you did something right or something wrong, you actually got a symbiote stuck in your body, and the more time units you let slip by, the more this thing would gestate in you. Gave you some good little benefits, but after about 3 or 4 adventures with this, the negatives started really outweighing the benefits of this creature. And literally, if you did not get it out of you, it was going to burst out of you like the chest alien, and you're going to have a permanent character death.
Oh my gosh.
So they would get this one little thing, and they're like, oh, that's really cool. We called it Junior because it was a kind of a Stargate reference. And everyone's like, yeah, this is really good. Second module, like, oh, look at all these benefits. Yep. Third module, they're like, oh, that's not that good. We're like, nope. Fourth module, they're like, okay, we really need to get this out of them. I'm like, sure do. And people ended up dying a couple times. A couple people had permanent deaths because they let it gestate too long and it destroyed them. But it was a celestial creature within you So it was like, do you destroy the celestial creature to get rid of it, or do you be the good person and let it kind of gestate? So
Moral
It was
dilemma.
like
Oh,
Preacher.
wow.
It was like Preacher.
Yeah, it was like Preacher a lot of ways.
moral ambiguity to it. And my friends still to this day, and we're talking, decades later, still say
Wow.
one of the best story arcs that we ever wrote for them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I loved it, and I have all. I just actually double checked, and I actually have all my Zeif stuff sitting on my computer, so I've got everything.
Right on.
Yeah, I
That's
think
an
that we sent some. Chris sent some of the stuff to Jay. I'm not sure if you have that particular one, but it was if you could bring up on screen the player certificate for, I think it was Zeif 6-08. It was called That Look, anyways, was the name of the adventure that
I don't
first
know.
gave it.
I don't know if I sent that to you.
No,
I
no.
can-
Unfortunately, I don't have that one.
I definitely have that.
Send it, man. I think it might be something fun for people to see.
Yeah.
It
It was year 6.
was year 6. It was the
Prom-
very first
promise-
adventure. in the
I don't have
series.
Discord on my PC right now because I have it on my laptop because I don't want crash of Twitch. Even though I got a super machine, Twitch is very wonky when it comes to stuff. So if you're gonna do it, do you have my email, Chris? Let me see if I can do this. But keep on talking, and I'll see if I can.
Sure.
Yeah. Send
Yeah, that was a great story arc. I'm actually a super fan of our 2-year story arc as well. That was this was the more political one. That was very this was the power struggle between the Sultan,
Okay.
the Sultan and in particular his naval forces, with the Grand Vizier, who was a lich, but was the advisor to the Sultan, and of course the Sultan's mother, who the Sultan's a pretty old guy. His mother looks like a beautiful teenage woman. So everyone knew there's something going on there, but we had it in this story arc. We actually reached out and went off the coast into the Gulf of Guyam, which we did a bunch of underwater adventures. It didn't start that way. The very first adventure of the arc was actually a caravan guarding adventure, basically, where they came across a caravan that had been damaged. People were in trouble, and it was a merfolk. So the merfolk played a significant role in our campaign, and we brought this this princess of the merfolk, the mersheiks, was being paid to the harem of the Sultan in tribute, because their tributes kept getting pirated on the way here, and so they hadn't paid for a long time. It's like, okay, we got to give them better stuff. I think the only way this is going to work is I'm going to have to give him one of my daughters. And so that was one of the things. And when she went there, she ate some Zeifan food, which this was one of the. She had, apparently all the merfolk had an allergy to cinnamon, which is used in Zeifan cooking. And so the Zeifan character, the princess and her bodyguard and everyone who'd survived the attacks couldn't speak, and they were dying. Their throats were closing up because of the cinnamon that they ate. So they had to, the DM of this adventure had to try and get across without talking what was happening to these people who had come across them, these adventurers. And that was pretty fun. And it started a long chain of stuff where, there was another, this was our very first adventure for Zeif, actually. And I think it set the tone really well. You had the opportunity as a player character to say, when you got there, you find out that the Mershik princess, she doesn't really obviously want to go and be in the harem of the Sultan. So a character can offer to take her place. And people did this. And it was another cool thing. And this is right off the bat. Very first adventure, people are going, yeah, I'm an honorable person. This is what I would do. And they did it. And it was super cool. People were getting favors. for it. We tried to think of every option as well. That was one of the things we told our authors to do during every adventure, and every time that we as the Triad got to edit them, if we saw something, we're like, what if the players do this? We send it back and say, write some extra stuff for this. And so we were like, well, what if they refuse? What if someone says, hey, you shouldn't have to do this, I want to do it. There's all sorts of opportunities for self-sacrifice in our adventures. Comes up over and over again, and people jumped on it over and over again. They're like, yeah, I love this. We had characters who chose true death. We had characters who chose to be a eunuch. We had characters who chose to remove their characters so that they could be a part of something else.
Wow.
We ended up having this arc was all eventually about climate change in a way. We had
Ahead of our time.
Yep.
So one sec, real quick, Anna.
Yeah,
I forwarded you the entire file. It's a PDF. Can you snip it right in half and send me 2 JPEGs back? Because if I pull my snip up during the stream, I think it'll be another zonker.
You send it on Discord?
Yeah, I sent to Anna at Greyhawk Maps. Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right. If you could just take that PDF, snip it in half, top, bottom, send it back to me, and I'll pull it off of there. If I pull the snip up, I'm worried too. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. So basically it came about that it came about over a series of adventures that Zeif is getting drier. And the merfolk are sort of on the vanguard of this thing. But creatures of elemental water are being attacked. And so this was the kind of big bad of this whole series was the Matron Sultana, who, as I mentioned, was this young, beautiful woman who somehow looks a lot younger than her middle-aged son. It comes out through the course of many adventures that she has been getting treatments, I guess, but they're addictive treatments to keep her young. And they're coming from an Ifrit, who is sort of the big bad behind the big bad. And people found out about this, and there are people who are supporters of the Matron Sultana all the way through, because you sort of had the choice in this series of adventures to support the Sultan, to support the Grim Vizier's side, to support the Matron Sultana. And so there was it was mostly espionage. So almost every adventure in this series, you would get the opportunity, someone would reach out to you before you actually got into the adventure and say, hey, the Grim Vizier would like to learn about this stuff first. So if you get this information, come back and give it to me. And someone from the Matron Sultana would do the same, and someone from the intelligence forces of the Sultan, usually through the Zeif Navy, would do the same. So there's always these 3 opportunities to say, you're just going to do the adventure. It's not going to have any real bearing on the adventure. But when you get back from the adventure, who do you tell first? And you would get favors to these people based on
powerful too.
And they were usually pretty powerful.
Yeah, they were the top 3. The triumvirate.
And so eventually one of these people turns out to be the bad guy. And
it wasn't the Lich.
It wasn't the Lich. Even though you fought a lot of undead.
Well, was it the mom?
It was the mom.
The strangely hot mom. I mean, go figure.
She was basically enthralled to this Ifrit who was giving her these treatments. And what
Thank you.
What the Ifrit wanted to do was basically open the Sultanate of Zeif to basically be an extension of the elemental plane of fire, which wasn't going to be good for the inhabitants.
No.
But they were basically drying it out, get rid of anything water related, and so it was our little nod to the climate change idea.
I like it.
That's a great plot.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool.
And it ties in with the culture of the djinn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And whatnot.
Yeah, we used all 4 of the regular djinns at some point, but it was really the Ifrit. In fact, the money in Zeif, I think a gold piece was called an Ifrit. We had our own coinage and stuff like that as well.
The Ifrit, we had Magi.
This is gonna take up most me. It's gonna cover my picture. We're just gonna throw this thing up here. Here we go. I'm gonna widen this thing
Cool.
up.
Oh, you're gonna need to make it big.
I will.
Whoa.
Okay.
So for people look at home who haven't seen this, this is an adventure record. Living Greyhawk had an accounting system that would track your gold and experience gained, what items you could buy, what gold you spent, and what favors you earned.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is the bureaucratic part of it.
Yeah.
So much.
Unfortunately, this is
paperwork.
the wrong one.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, is it? Oh,
There's 2 certs. One was for the regular cert for just doing the adventure, and the other one,
It's okay.
Hang on a second. Yeah.
the suspense.
the other one has Junior on it. And you only got that cert if you had Junior.
And you had your
Wah,
cat-
wah, wah.
Hang on a second. I have. There's 2 versions of them. I'll see if that one look a little.
Hey, I'm only
bit-
getting these emailed because like I said, so far I haven't crashed anything. You know,
Good.
please don't hit that share
It's the
screen button
same-
either.
Yeah,
guys.
it's the
like-
same. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
so-
the wrong one. It's the wrong one. Yep. Sorry.
All
I'll
right.
send it.
Yeah,
I'll
I
send
sent you the actual one on Discord.
So
Yep.
let me ask real quick, did you
Mhm.
guys have any dungeon delves or dragons? I'm just curious, like you had a lot of political machinations, but did you just have any, let's go kill some things?
Classic.
Oh yeah.
We actually had a dragon that was allergic to cinnamon.
Yes, that's right.
It had a vulnerability to cinnamon. If you hit it with cinnamon, and the funny thing was, it was near a merchant's cart, and the merchant's cart actually had cinnamon on it. So someone actually put 2 and 2 together. They could actually disable the dragon with cinnamon.
What kind
Yeah.
of dragon?
Uh,
Oh, geez.
I don't remember what it was. It was either a red or a green, one of the 2.
Yeah, I think it was a red,
Yeah.
if I recall.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it was a classic turn on, you know how the old
Forwarding
modules,
on
you kill
Here it
the
comes.
dragon, and inside its hoard you find the dragon slaying sword.
Yeah.
So that was supposed to be the funny thing about that, and it was great.
Here comes Anna, second time.
Okay.
And yeah, in conclusion about the Eternally Yours arc, which was named up obviously for the eternal Matron Sultana. People, when they found out that the Matron Sultana was the bad guy, were pissed. And we didn't kill her off. The end of the arc it was our season, our 2-season arc. We ended the arc in year 7, and she was still alive. It didn't really occur to me to say we should get rid of her, because she's a canon character. So we're just like, you know, she's bad, but she's the Matron Sultana. So what are you gonna do about it?
Yeah.
But people were pissed, and so we kind of discussed it, me and Chris and Corey, and we're like, okay, let's talk to Tim, see if we can let them kill her off. So we actually extended the arc, and this was at this point. I'm not sure if we knew. I think we knew at this point that we weren't really going to get a full season 8. So we were like, okay, let's give her a grand finale. And so, yeah, we wrote a little bit more to sort of tack on to the end of this story, and we had an interactive. Long story short, she dies.
I think the other Triad members told me or reminded me that we got told about Living Greyhawk ending in year 8 at Gen Con in year 7. That's when they announced 4th edition, I believe. So then they had told us, hey, you can write 4 mods in year 8, 6 if you had qualified for these extra things by your past performance, and you could do 2 interactives or whatever it was.
Yeah, we squeezed it all out. I think we did get the 6, and we got the 2 interactives in.
Lucky
our
you
last
guys. That's
interactive,
awesome.
we decided we would do it because, you know, we had a little bit better internet stuff at that time. So we decided we were actually going to try and do it concurrently in all the main cities.
Cool.
So we'd have it going in Calgary and Edmonton and Victoria and Vancouver. It didn't work out, I think, as well as we had hoped, but ended up, you know, we had everyone we could play this thing and got the results in. And told everyone sort of how the story ended. It was kind of a big farewell party for the whole thing.
Yeah, I wish we had done that in the BK. We had our finale in one location, I think, and by then there was a lot of burnout. You know, a lot of people started thinking about 4th edition and living Forgotten Realms and whatnot. So
Here we go. Take 2. Can you feel it squirm?
That's the
Yeah.
baby.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Junior.
You have become host to something, and judging by what you have seen, this is not a good thing. You have 24 months from this point forward to get rid of it. After that, your character shares the same fate as the woman in the birthing chamber. The longer creatures in you, the more things in your body begin to change. Oh my god, look at the minuses.
Oh yeah, and the scene in the birthing chamber is grotesque. It was
Oh my
it was
gosh.
written with a warning, you know, if people are young at your table, blah blah blah,
Oh.
all that kind of stuff. Don't you know, you get your choice. Here's things you could leave out if you don't want to, you know, scare everyone too badly. But everyone is sort of forewarned at the beginning of the adventure.
How did you get it out of you? I have to know.
There's another adventure later. The arc always made mention to people who had Junior, and this, I think the second module in the series had nothing good came of it. Thank you.
Yeah, it was basically, yeah, and it had so the mods that we wrote had special events or things that happen if you had Junior at the table, and it actually became a thing where people were like, "Who's got Junior? We want someone with Junior at the table," right? Because of things that they would actually miss if they didn't have someone with Junior on there. So we actually had to go back and like replay that mod just to get Junior on their table, so people would go back and play. It was riot.
Yeah, and we had this was the one that Corey and I co-wrote called Deliverance. I think that was second year mod. Deliverance, you know, delivering a baby.
Why does that ring a bell? I don't know why that.
Oh my gosh.
And we wrote that one. This was the one where you get the opportunity to give birth or kill it, or there were numerous options. I can't remember what they all were, but you had a bunch of options. None of them were super attractive, but it was the way you could I think you could absorb it. I think that's what it was. And on the cert, you end up you could absorb it, let it become a part of you, and then you got some benefits and some drawbacks permanently, but you weren't going to die. And then there was the, you know, you don't get it. You just decided to let things go as they are. You keep your own cert and you eventually die of it. And then there was the get rid of this thing entirely option, if I recall. Wow. Is that right, Corey?
Yep, absolutely. Oh yeah.
I'm getting a lot of ideas.
Yeah.
They're all disturbing. Yes. Wow.
Yeah, this could be nasty. Yeah.
And as I mentioned, we also had the first year 4-part single story arc was based on the 4 Feet of the Dragon, which was a philosophical concept that we consider that most of the people in Zeif either subscribe to it or pretend to. The honor, family, piety, and generosity ideals. So these modules were basically all about. They're all set in the city and province of Sheshra. I can't remember.
Keshra, I think, wasn't it?
Keshra, something like that. And it was all about this guy who was calling himself he was basically known as the dragon because he followed these principles so
I love this guy.
strongly.
I love this guy. His name is the best. Can I say it?
Say his name.
His name was Zini Bey bin Zin al Keshra.
Because bin was, you know, you'd say your parents' name, so you'd say your name, your parents' name, and if you're a bey, you said you were the bey of this place. So he was the bey of this place. He's the noble in charge of this area, and he's only pretending on all 4 fronts. This guy is a total asshole, but you don't know that at the start. You play these adventures and you find out about it, but no one's gonna believe you over the bey, right? So it's about, over the course of these 4 adventures, you're collecting evidence in a way against this guy. And basically we ended that off with an interactive called The Worm. And I think that was at Conviction in Calgary.
Yep, it was.
Ooh.
Yeah. And Andreas Zimmerman wrote that. It was really good. Andreas was our second triad member. So me and Corey started up with Mike Hackstead, who also used to be a Duchy of Ernst triad member. We started it up in first year. I guess about halfway through the first year, Mike moved on. Andreas definitely was a good choice to come in. He was already doing a bunch of our writing.
Mm-hmm.
And so he stuck with us. And then in the second year, he left and we got Chris on. And yeah, it was all three of these guys are great to work with.
Sounds like you had a boatload of fun, which is what
we
the whole
did.
point
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
about, definitely. I think, Mike, you haven't asked the $1 million question, and that is other other territories, like all interacting. Go ahead, you got to ask.
Yeah, so while all you guys were playing Living Greyhawk, I was writing about all, just for my own amusement, like a triad of one. You know.
A monad.
For example, I'll post a map of
Yep.
how things look from the old perspective. Anyhow, did Ol ever come up in any conversations in the Zeif
Oh wow.
region, or
others like Ekbeer, you know?
Ekbeer definitely came up.
Anything else?
Ekbeer did for sure. It was huge, actually. I mean, our
Plains and
history.
Paynims.
Yeah, and the Plains of Paynims. The Paynims, basically, in our history, there's the very first Sultan, the one that got eaten by the dragon turtle. He was originally a Paynim tribesman, a Paynim chieftain. And he founded the country and the city of Zeif, I think, if I recall correctly. It's a lot to read, so I didn't read it all in advance. But he was a Paynim, and so there's a horse culture, definitely huge horse culture and cavalry culture in the region.
Yeah, there's some reference to it in the player's guide. Though
Ahmed?
the Wadi was the border between Ul and Zeif.
Mm-hmm.
There's
There was
a lot
also,
of real estate between them. Yeah.
There was also the Al Akbar, of course, who's famous to people who just had the Dungeon Master's Guide and looked at the magic items in the old days. We had he was pretty important, obviously, in Ket, where there was a schism in the Church of Al Akbar in canon. There's the Exalted Faith, which was the way people had been worshipping, and it was based on, the clergy who were sort of, rich clergy, kind of controlling everything. And then there was, I forget what they called the newer version of it, what was kind of poor mendicant orders. I don't remember the name of it. But anyways, Ket embraced this whole thing, and that's part of the reason that they split off in the schism.
Was that Daoud? Is that different?
No, Daoud's a totally different god. But Al Akbar's followers had a schism, sort of like...
Oh, the True Faith and the Exalted Faith.
True Faith. So the True Faith was the newer faith that was all about, being impoverished. And the Ketites, that was their faith. And our region stuck with the Exalted Faith. And I think there was sort of civil war in Tusmet that had something to do with that. The religions, and something to do with, the usual, some nobility and money and stuff like that, if I recall from what I read. But yeah, so the Talisman of Al Akbar, I think, is a major item in the original AD&D Dungeon Master's Guide. We also had the apparatus of Quailish. Quailish was from our area and disappeared a long time ago.
Boy, I say that wrong too.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
Quailish. Who knows, right? But we made good use of Quailish. It was one of our meta orgs. So meta org was basically a club, I guess you could call it, amongst player characters. And so all the regions had them by this time, so we had to come up with a whole bunch of new ones for Zeif. And one of the meta orgs was followers of Coilish. I can't remember what their name.
Yeah, it was something like that.
Yeah, anyways, we had a lot of people who were interested because obviously people who have been playing for a long time know all these magic items. The apparatus of Coilish is one of the wackier items in the DMG.
Yeah.
And you could totally get it. And you could
You
drive
could
it
get
around.
one.
Now you can find it in Ghosts of Saltmarsh at the bottom of the Azure Sea.
Right. Yeah. So we actually had an interactive. I think this was our second year interactive in Vancouver, where at this point we knew the Sultan's Navy knew that we were going to be coming to the rescue of his vassals, the merfolk, who were being besieged by underwater undead, mostly zombies. So we kind of knew at this point what we were going to be facing, but how do you fight underwater? Zombies, if you remember your 3rd edition, zombies have had resistance to slashing weapons. Or no, so they
Were these zombies or drowned ones? Big difference.
Zombies.
Okay.
Well, there were various things, but anyways, underwater slashing weapons suck. So there were penalties. All the rules from the DMG gave you all these penalties for swinging a blunt weapon or a slashing weapon. So you wanted to use a piercing weapon. Piercing weapons are terrible against skeletons. So we did all this stuff. Okay, this is going to be hard, but we wanted to do these underwater adventures. So initially, when we were doing some underwater stuff, we would raise the APL basically. So this monster, it is sort of hard to fight, but you're going to be underwater taking all these disadvantages. So we're going to say it's harder than it is, and make the monster a little bit weaker for your level. But we then, in 2nd year, we had this interactive where it was basically a naval, I can't remember what it was called, but it was basically a naval engineering exposition or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So they were coming up with ways, and the Sultanate sent people out all over the world trying to find how do we fight underwater against the undead. So we had this all these people. They would summon zombie sharks and stuff in this huge tank. Then here, get into this apparatus of Coilish and fight it. Or we would have some of the weapons from the splat books that were both slashing and piercing.
Storm racked.
Yeah. So we would give people access to those because you didn't have access to everything from all the splat books. A lot of what you would get on these certificates was permission to buy items and learn spells that were not in the core products. So we were at these interactives. We said, okay, and this was a research project for us as well, to look through all the splat books and figure out what would be good weapons against underwater undead. And so, yeah, we found, and so we would say we got these people from this this desert tribe, or these people from up in these icy mountains who are using this, and we had them demonstrate the weapon, and everyone could try and go in and fight a zombie shark or whatever was appropriate to their level. And it was relatively safe. If you were in trouble, we'd get you out of there. You weren't allowed to turn them. You weren't allowed to, you had to fight with the weapon.
Don't turn the zombies. They're working.
Yeah. So at the end, you got access to these weapons, including the apparatus of Coilish, and you also got training. So it would be when using this and this weapon in this situation, you get this bonus. Stuff like that. So there was a bonus for people. So not only do you have access to an apparatus of Coilish, you're better at using it. When you pull the right lever, you can pull the left lever in quick succession or something like that.
Yeah.
It was
you had to make a concentration check.
Right.
Yeah.
to be
For
better
those
at
who-
using these.
For those who don't do 3rd edition in Pathfinder, it was so situational. The bonuses, you could get a bonus. It's like, all right, you get a +2 bonus to hit goblins. If it's Monday, you had a beer and your best friend is named Ted.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
There were so many situational bonuses in 3rd edition.
Crazy.
Yeah, and we tried to make as many as we could that would fit with the things we were going to do in our region.
Yeah. Excellent. Gary Julian asked, did the adjacents of an inestimable beauty ever return to Zeif?
I don't think we ever worked with that one.
No, I think we
Oh.
we totally missed that opportunity.
Yeah.
We didn't have enough time. I'm sure when it came around.
Now you guys stuffed a lot in 2.5 years.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is fantastic. So let me ask this of all three of you, and why don't you start this, Chris? I mean, you gotta have, maybe it's already been said. What's the thing that burns in your head, the fondest memory you have of the entire 2.5 year period?
Oh, the fondest.
Yeah,
thing
like there's something that
for
really
me?
just sticks. You know, like wow.
I think it was really cool just being like creating all this stuff and then hearing all the stories of people like using it. You know, like working on like the meta org, what was it, the Dusklash, and then having characters coming up and asking you like, hey, I'm trying to progress in this thing. Like where can I find out more stuff about this? And of course they're like a secretive organization. I really liked all the meta org stuff, like whether you're in the priesthood or in the
I'm bringing that up
Dusklash.
right now. If you want to explain this, please. There it is.
So yeah, they're like this gang basically. There's different layers to it. The first layer is basically the front face of it, which basically everybody knows. They're just thugs and pirates, and you shouldn't trust them, and they're all criminals. And so they kind of provided a group for, you know, your more roguish elements and PCs to play in them. If you were a more subtle type of, you know, espionage type character, you could be in the second group of them. And there was this whole history behind them as well, like these two sons in, you know, the far off history. It was probably all made up anyway. And then there's like a super secretive third layer, which was the leadership of them. And it was tied into this other priesthood, the priesthood of Zanier, which is like a bunch of monks. And they were kind of in this kind of competition with, I think it was Akbar? Maybe it was, or it was the Mokuad Consortium. I don't know. They were always fighting because they were basically helping the pirates steal from all of them.
Yeah, I think it was with the consortium.
Yeah, and I think like at the very deepest or highest levels of the leadership, they were basically being supported by the Sultan.
Yeah,
I think he was the actual leader of the Dusklash, and he kept them as kind of his underhand, so that they could do all the dirty work and secretly oppose the matron and the vizier.
Yeah, it was super cool. I remember that. The Sultan being the head of the biggest criminal organization in the country was very cool. I like.
Sometimes he needed to get stuff done, and
so
he was kind of tied. His hands were tied in a lot of ways because it was a lawful evil nation, right?
He had to follow the 4 feet of the dragon, and you can't do that and be a spy.
Yeah.
So I'm going to continue that questioning, but first, 2 things. What is the map you did down there, Chris? And then I'm going to ask a question that
I think that map is
flavors.
I don't think I drew that.
Okay.
This was a hand-drawn one, I think, for probably a hastily put together battle interactive.
Okay.
I think there's, yeah, I think there's some names on there. Yeah, so those are different judges, and each judge was responsible for a different portion of this battle interactive. And then after mustering, you'd be like, okay, our high APL table would be, you know, would probably go to number 6.
Of course, it's behind. Right there. Yeah, there it is. So you got Jason, James, Slater, is that John, Naples, Duncan?
Yeah, so this is a Vancouver one.
Okay, cool.
And these are all guys that, you know, they're all friends of ours that were running different portions of it. Yeah, and this one part of the elite I think this was part of the elite.
Yeah,
arc.
yeah. All the
Oh.
slave pits of Dabia stuff was elite arc stuff.
Oh.
Yeah.
What percent
I
was
think,
You guys would get that many tables for your specifically deadly adventures and adventure paths? Because
well, you
that's
got to
amazing
remember,
me.
people were coming up from the Duchy of Ernst with their high level characters because
Mhm.
we're pretty close to Seattle. So people were coming up from Seattle and Portland, which had very large large sets of high level character population. They'd come here like, oh, this is elite, huh? And they want to try it out. And,
Gotcha. That's
yeah.
interesting because
blast.
BK was known for being deadly, but we were told, hey, you need to write for the average party. And if a really powerful party wants to stomp the adventure and be bored, well, that's on them for min-maxing.
Mhm.
Because you don't want to write an adventure that will just TPK your newbies or your average people or your role players who didn't min-max. And now I wish we had, thought to have this path where we say, this is for the min-maxers. Because, we had one or two adventures where we told people, like, the gloves are coming off. There will be untiered encounters you can trigger. That was our big warning, untiered encounter.
Yeah.
But we didn't have, like, this elite path. So that's really fascinating for me to hear you guys doing that.
Casey triggered something, and the clock is ticking. But I want to ask a question from Christoph. Did Alamazad the Wise of the Circle of Eight ever, since he was in Zeif,
Circle of Eight.
did he ever make an appearance?
I don't believe we were allowed to touch the Circle of Eight.
We weren't.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I guess we could have asked for permission, but we didn't ever do that.
Yeah, there's always these are the things you can do, and these are the things you cannot touch.
Okay.
And Circle of Eight was definitely on the do not touch list.
Okay. Yeah, because he said I was asking about his appearance in the LG version of Zeif. So, okay,
That's a shame.
it is.
Yeah. it
Yeah,
would've been
I mean,
cool.
they would come up sometimes. I think in some of the core adventures that were
Okay.
written by the Circle for everyone to use, but the regions weren't allowed to touch them.
Like, Tim probably wrote some core adventures
Yeah,
that he appeared
He
in.
did,
Tim,
yeah.
their Living Greyhawk boss, so to speak.
yeah, and in the meta region as well. There were a set of meta regional adventures that came out each year. Not in the first year, but there were some later.
All right, Corey, how about your favorite moment?
Honestly, one of the weirdest things that we got to do is we started something called the Zeif Town Project.
Okay.
This is where players could actually build their own towns, build their own buildings. They could own shops. They had time unit upkeep costs. And it was, it was interesting because at first you're like, who's going to do that? And then you find out like a dozen people in Calgary are building a town. 10 guys out in Vancouver and Victoria are building a town. Edmonton's building a town. And also you have these full-blown maps of cities and stuff that we actually got to drop into adventures. And it was someone's like, that's my shop. We're like, sure is your shop. And people could interact theoretically with other characters as kind of NPC/PCs. And we did full-blown maps for their houses and all this stuff. And we had like full-blown buildings. And it was probably one of the more interesting parts just because of the fact that, when you first proposed it, you're like, who's going to really want to do this? And also you find out everyone's like, this is the coolest thing ever. We got some gold to burn. We got some time units to burn. Let's build a merchant shop of knickknacks and thievery stuff and good ways for people to pawn their items and that. So it became a much more interesting and in-depth part of the of Zeif than I actually thought it was ever going to be. So to me, that's kind of one of the more near and dear things to my heart is us firing that up and getting it actually working and people that involved in it.
Was that based on any of the work Vernon and Verbabonk did, or did you all develop that on your own?
I'm pretty sure we developed it all on our own because that's, I think, when the Strongholder Builder's Guidebook came out.
Oh, right.
Of course, everyone wanted to build a shop and build keeps.
Right. Yeah, we did a few things, and I really wish Living Greyhawk had incorporated stuff like that sooner because, we would have slowed down character advancement. I think we've talked offline about 20th level PCs in the campaign, which I wasn't even aware of until I talked to John. And that could have been something they could have spent their time units and gold on and slowed them down, and that would have made adventure writing easier. Instead of writing APL 14 and APL 16 adventures, you're writing 10 and 12, which are easier to design. But people want to have homes. You know, characters all over live in Greyhawk were basically told, we don't know where the hell you live. You just bounce around from adventure to adventure until you guys create rules like that. So that's really awesome. Kudos to you guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can only rent in real life, but I can buy a home and live in Greyhawk.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean,
So John,
Apartments. I mean, come on. All the characters that live in a major city need to be paying rent or own a house or
Yeah.
sleep in a barn or something.
Yep, we had an actual tax table for players, and they had to pay a certain amount of upkeep every adventure they played and every time unit they spent. And there was repercussions if they actually let their buildings lapse or fall into disrepair and stuff. So it was interesting, yeah.
They get thrown in with the zombie sharks for testing.
Exactly.
We actually, in our second year, single year arc was actually to set an adventure in each of the cities that are each of the town project cities. So if you see those adventures, you'll see there's a bunch that have these weird names. Well, those are the city names.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, Parshadon was, I think, the first one. I can't even remember which one went with what. I was looking at them like, whose city was whose here? I can't remember now. What do you remember? Which one was Calgary's?
I can pull it up on my computer and tell you in a minute.
Cool.
I actually found that I actually tracked everything.
I couldn't find any of the actual town project stuff, just the town project guide document. But I know that we made an adventure for each of the cities as our second year arc.
Wow, that's amazing to tie in that much with your players' creativity.
George and Vancouver all had towns.
Yeah. But yeah, so you'd be going in there and we'd consult with these people too. We'd consult with whoever built those towns about what was in the environment. We're thinking of doing this. Would that make sense? And that was very fun. The other thing I guess that we did, our second year arc tied a little bit into our first year arc, in that I think the second year adventure for generosity involved an auction. And the main point of it was to get this item for this displaced noble. From his stuff was being auctioned off while he was missing and people were taking over. So someone had asked you to, get his family heirloom shield from this auction for them. But there were also a bunch of other things that you could bid on. And this is one of those places where you get to use your appraise skill. But anyways, you get this stuff, and there's like a figurine of a horse. There's a flute. I can't remember what the other things were. I think there was a spear. And then there was the shield that you were supposed to get to complete the adventure properly. Well, the flute was actually made by a character, one of the really high level characters, I think, that made it to level 20. His name was Decius, and he was a bard in the Duchy of Ernst. And so he was a bard who went into crafting musical instruments. So we decided, okay, well, and I think this was Chris Naples' character. I think, yeah. So, anyways, we got his character's name in this auction. This is the guy who built this. He's obviously retired by this point because he made level 20 by year 2 or 3 or whenever you're supposed to make, whenever they drop the level cap. But we also had a bunch of our high level characters from the Duchy of Ernst retired in Zeif because they wanted to be part of the town project. So the Vancouver town project, there's a whole bunch. There's basically a whole bunch of these high level Duchy of Ernst Sulawese characters are living in our town project.
How about that?
Wow.
Hey, take advantage of it, right?
I don't know if you're talking to us, Chris, but I can't hear you.
Oh, Chris.
Oh, Chris.
His headset sometimes goes wonky.
No sound. There you go. There you go,
No
Chris.
sound? Yeah.
Yep,
All
there
right.
you go.
So I think the Duchy Triad actually worked with us at that time as well. Like, wasn't that where the whole Western Finesse meta org the meta regional meta org came from, so that duchy characters could specifically transfer to Zeif.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty cool.
So I'm this is gosh, man. You guys all right if we go a little long tonight? A little bit, just a little bit. We want to keep this discussion going. I think everyone's.
Yeah, I have one
I'm down.
question that I want to ask, a map-related question.
Go for it, Anna.
There's the regional map 4.0. Then there is the western part, like Kumal, Risei, Mur, and the Empire of Isustan. Were the adventure set there, and was that detailed part of the setting too?
That's a good question. I don't remember.
It's interesting because then you went kind of that goes beyond anything that was developed earlier. So that's really, really cool, because in that case, that's the most developed part of the Greyhawk setting that has gone beyond the Darlene map or any of the earlier products. It's kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was just made up, I think, on our end.
Yeah.
The authors just made that stuff.
He's throwing it in Photoshop and then figuring stuff out.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's kind of cool. It's that one has a lot of names and all sorts of stuff on it, so it's really cool.
Yeah, it's cool. I like it. If you manage to get to look into some of the adventures. I don't know if this is anything but the adventures, but I really like the map of the Gulf of Gayar or whatever, Gulf of Gayam.
Yeah.
It shows this deep underwater trench, and there's this one part that it's deeper. No one knows how deep, kind of thing. It's a cool map, and we just reused it, right? Because we kept going there. So we used this great map. I can't remember who made that, but I imagine it was probably either Ian or Jake, because they did most of the work on those arcs. In fact, that was a very cool thing about that arc as well. This was the Eternally Yours arc that did all the underwater stuff with the merfolk, was that obviously as triads we're not allowed to play in these adventures, so we kind of forfeit our right to play in the region. But the first couple of adventures in this arc were written by Ian Seal and Jake Robbins, and they knocked it out of the park, in my opinion. The writing was really good. Like I would say either of these guys should probably write novels. They're just great, good research, lots of good characters and interesting situations. And so in the second year, I was like, okay, well, we're going to continue. This is our second year arc. And what we would normally do is basically say, because Corey and I and whoever else was triad at the time would say, this is what we want to happen in our arc. But we can't tell our authors everything, because they might play in a later adventure in the arc. So we'd say, okay, what can we give out that they can flesh out and make their own, but make sure that this kind of goes through. And so we would do that, and our authors did great jobs of it. But in this case, the arc was pretty tight, I would say. With what was going on with the Matron Sultana and the Freed and everything, I really got the idea that it would be better if we just let them in on the whole thing, like what we had planned for the arc. And so I asked them, I think we talked about this before, whether we should even ask them, but I think we agreed, well, it doesn't hurt to ask. But what this means is Ian and Jake, they were going to write the rest of the modules for the arc, and we were going to tell them everything that was going to happen. So they weren't allowed to play in the adventures each other wrote. So they're in a way sort of demi-triads, in that they just lost out on the opportunity to play in a bunch of adventures. They both jumped on it, and I think that having them get together on that made it really good. And obviously Jake was from Edmonton, Ian was in Vancouver, and we basically gave them the outline. This is what we want to have happen, and they just fleshed it out so amazingly. The second year stuff for that arc is deep. It's really deep, as deep as the Gulf of Gayam.
Cool.
Are you talking about, is that the extension of the out of water stuff, like the
the Eternally Yours arc was the out of water and beyond. Yeah.
For the people who didn't get to play, I think we should explain that every triad was basically a miniature Kevin Feige, like he is with the MCU, where he is seeding this information to his directors and writers, and he's the only one with the overall vision. That's exactly what you guys just described, and that's exactly what happened in the BK. You know, we though did not end up wanting to have a dedicated team where we didn't have that resource. We had one author who probably did one adventure a year. But that's amazing that you had these. I like the term demi-triad. We used to just call them triad in training.
Right.
We were lucky.
It probably would have gone there eventually if the campaign had continued. I wasn't ready to continue much further. I was very burnt out by the end there.
Yeah, we were doing gaming guild stuff too at the same time. So we were
and
hosting.
I got a job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you guys all in college during Living Greyhawk?
No, I was in my 30s at this point. But I worked. I was a contract worker. I had like a monthly contract, and I would work at home. I had a certain amount of work to do every month. I'd try and get it done in the first week, and then I could just work on my Living Greyhawk stuff. But that kind of dried up. It was an awesome gig for a while. The pay wasn't super, but it was good enough for me at the time. Sure. But when that dried up, I was like, oh crap, I have to find a job. And then I found a job, and then I had to commute to way out in the suburbs, and my day was super long, and I was like, oh my god,
it's hard to adult when you're a triad member.
Yeah, I'm like, how am I going to edit all these adventures? And, oh no, the interactives this weekend, I haven't done anything.
Yeah, I think Joe and all of us estimated we were spending 20 to 50 hours a week on Living Greyhawk, just depending on what was coming up.
And that's why we tap people, right? Like, you know, I say we, but I mean, that was how I basically started and got pulled into the triad thing, is because I was already working on Meta.org stuff and editing adventures and whatnot. Because there's just so much work. The sheer bureaucracy, like even just the ARs, making sure the ARs are legit, and the tables, like third edition. I don't know if everybody remembers third edition, but you know, you had to have everything in the right format for every APL. And you know, a module would only be like this thick, but then it would be like 3 times the size.
Yeah, 7 pages of adventure and 14 pages of stat blocks.
Exactly, all the stat blocks.
In fact, that was mostly what the Circle did for us. Was they wanted to make sure the stat blocks were all right and in the right format. And so that's where we got sometimes stuff sent back. Like, okay, well, yeah, these stat blocks don't make sense or whatever, and we'd get them to come back to us, and we'd have to send them back out after they were fixed.
It blows my mind that we did not share stat blocks on a campaign-wide scale, and it was late in the campaign when I started hoarding stat blocks from Word documents and made like a 200-page 3.5 stat block, you know, just repository. Like, oh, I need a blue slot that I want to do a template to. All right, well, I have a base blue slot stat. And people forget, third edition stat block changed when 3.5 came out. So year 1, 2, and 3 adventures, if I remember correctly, were all 3.0.
That's
and then I think either year 3 or year 4 was 3.5. So next thing you know, we're all learning a new and prettier, better stat block. But we all should have just had, like, this is one of the RPGA failures. And they should have had an online database where if you guys were like, hey, we need a CR18 undead monster, well, the BK's got you covered, you know? And if we were like, we need a CR14 Efreet, you know, you guys would have had us covered.
And we were fortunate to have such close ties with the Duchy of Ernst triad, right? Because we could kind of lean on them every once in a while, be like, hey, do you guys happen to have this level of thing? And it's like, oh yeah, sure, here's a stat block, just, you know, change the name, or, you know, tweak this or that.
On the devil's advocate side of that, a lot of the times when Tim sent back an adventure because the stat blocks were wrong, is because we copied and pasted stuff and then wrote over some of them, but not all of them.
But not all of it, not enough of it.
And like, what? This is a totally different stat block. Because
the adventures, I should tell people, there was a template for Living Greyhawk, and it did have the stat block template inside it, which had the mathematical ability, like you would tell it how many skill ranks and what the statistic was, and et cetera, et cetera. And theoretically, it would then have the correct final number or whatever, and you'd be able to break out all the bonuses and change them. But I never used that. I just typed up the monster, and Britt would take a look at it and, send it on its way.
Yeah, I definitely remember, we would be we'd be getting up early and going to the convention and writing out stat blocks and making maps before the interactive. We didn't have it all done in advance before interactives. They weren't published, so we didn't have to.
Right.
We had to get the certs from Tim. We had to get all that sorted out, what we were going to give away, what the APLs were and all that. But when it came to actually writing the adventures, we were often still writing them on the day of. And that was nerve-wracking. But
Oh my gosh.
I think we had, every time we had an interactive, I felt that it was a raving success every single time. They were very good.
Yeah, people like those, the battle interactives too.
Yeah, battle interactives were epic. The LARP interactives let everyone get a chance to get into character and just walk around without rolling dice. Those are super fun. And people would dress up. In fact, that's one of my
one step beyond, man. Wow.
No, that's part of the game, man.
Yeah.
We did one or two of those. I wish I could have seen your guys's.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, this is a favorite memory, not from Zeif, but from before that, when we were still in the duchy. But I was playing a female character. There was a noble paladin, Suluise. I came to a battle interactive dressed up in a dress and wig and everything, and no one knew who I was.
Wow.
Until I started talking in my voice. But I was generally not talking in my voice when I was in character.
Damn it, John!
But I was
You're gonna make me admit my dirty, sordid LARP secret that I had to role play my female elf because I lost a bet to Thomas Brister.
Nice.
Awesome.
Difference is I'm proud of it. It was a really good drag job. People can't tell.
Awesome. Yeah.
All right, I got a serious question here for something down the road. Who is your best DM or someone you really think was a great DM that would be available to get on Zoom and actually DM something now?
That's a good question.
Man,
I'm going to offend somebody if I pick one.
Well, the reason I'm asking, just listen to why I'm asking. We are in the very beginning of putting together a virtual Greyhawk con. Okay? So my idea is get you three together and whoever else you want and play one, and I'll produce it.
Okay, what do you want? Do you want a TPK or do you want a real experience?
Whatever.
Because it really matters.
We'll get
Chris, you're an honorary BK Triad member.
We'll get you guys all playing a Zeif game one more time. We're talking about sometime in the summer.
I was literally, people called me John TPK Dawes for a while in our local circles. So I think that's what Chris is talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, we have DMs. What did we have at our convention? We had a T-shirt that we used to joke about, you would have to wear if you didn't TPK or didn't kill a character. It's
just an idea for because I think it would be awesome to get you guys all playing again. Even if it's for just one night or one afternoon or sometime.
I'm sure you could convince any of us.
Okay.
To do it. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm not going to
speak for Corey, but
I would say out of from back in the day, and I haven't played with them since, but I always really enjoyed when Ian Seal ran an adventure. He was one of the writers in that Eternally Yours arc that I was talking about, Ian and Jake, and he put the effort in. He would do good voices for the characters, and he would research in advance. You didn't ever see him running an adventure cold if he could help it. And of course, he couldn't help it on interactive day when I said, "Here you go." The ink's not dry. But I very much recommend
John.
Yep.
All right, well, it's just an idea. I want to throw it out there because we're in the infancy stages of all these conventions getting canceled all over the country. ReaperCon just got canceled today, so we're
drag.
Yeah, we're
definitely
gonna try
keep us in the loop. I mean, we're going to be on the Discord.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just wanted to throw it out there if you guys were, and that's good to hear that you are. So
you should drag in Chris Jarvis. Get him to run. Get him to run Herrenhaus.
Oh man.
That would be
That's,
awesome.
a Zeif, that's a duchy. That's an old duchy joke.
Infamous first year Duchy of Ernst mod. A lot of people died in it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
Did any of you guys play in it? Did you travel to the duchy? No. Oh man.
Yeah.
It had some great descriptions though of the curtains. Sorry, Chris. We love you.
Good thing is that we can plan it long term, and you guys are in, so we'll work on that because we're gonna have some meetings coming up. I just want to throw it out there, and that's awesome because we're gonna see what kind of, a lot of us are gonna be very, very busy if we have that over that 3 day. Probably thinking of from a Friday night on to Saturday and Sunday afternoon. So we'll make it'll be a fun time. So good. Good to hear.
Delegate.
Good to hear.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. Let's start with Corey on what you want to say in closing about your experience and what for the future, or just whatever you'd like to say.
I think it was a hell of an experience. It was great. It was you learned a lot. You learned how to work with people, how to work with all different kinds of people, how certain people write different ways and stuff. It was an absolute blast writing all this stuff. I think one of the biggest things is being able to share it with everyone, and getting so much positive from that kind of thing, from those adventures. And to me, that's probably the one thing I've always taken away into that is writing and stuff. I do write for my LARP. I own a LARP chapter and stuff. And my players are always surprised at how fast I can write up a mod and how intricate they can be. And I'm like, that's from years of writing stuff for Living Greyhawk, for just being a DM in general and stuff. And absolutely loved our time doing it. It was stressful as all hell. Like John said, you're doing interactives, and just the ink's not dry from the printer, but you're still handing it off to guys, and everyone's just taking it with a grain of salt and going. So there's a lot of late nights, a lot of work put in, 20, 30 hours a week for sure. But absolutely would not have traded it for anything. Absolutely loved the group, loved the players, and really enjoyed my time being Triad and being, in that era of D&D. I loved it.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Like this whole shared experience thing. The ability to travel regions and create this massive thing that your character actually would have an effect on, like with all the different special missions and meta orgs.
Like the LARP I'm involved with is called Alliance, and we actually have a whole bunch of chapters out in the US. And one of the things that really made me want to work with this group is the fact that it was like Living Greyhawk. And if I want to take my character and take him to Chicago and play in the LARP there, it's the same thing as taking my Living Greyhawk character with me.
You're getting your fix that way.
Absolutely, yeah. It's memories, right? And you get to travel with your character just like you would in Living Greyhawk. So absolutely love that.
Oh man, I just want to bring something up because something in the Twitch chat reminded me of it.
Sure. Absolutely.
So I think someone said someone's getting married to somebody.
Yeah. Casey.
Yeah, Casey,
right.
You're marrying a LARPer. Okay, so we had an in-character, real, actual wedding in Calgary at Conviction one year. I wasn't there. I wish I was. But I'd like Corey to say something about that because that is damn
awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, we had so we're doing an interactive, which is again where players are doing all this different stuff. And so at one point I said, all right, everyone, so part of this interactive is going to be a wedding. And everyone's like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And I'm like, no, guys, it really is an actual live wedding. Owen and Jana are getting married, and they have their justice of the peace coming in. It is truly legit. So please do not say anything weird during it or whatever. It's legal, like legally binding. And yeah, we actually had a full-blown wedding at our interactive, at our convention in Calgary. It was absolutely wonderful, and I am still great friends with Owen and Janet to this day, and that's one of the things that we talked about a lot, right? Is sharing that kind of experience is just absolutely interesting. They're like, yeah, we want to get married at your con. I'm like, you want to do what?
Wow. That's amazing.
And it worked out great, and yeah, it was absolutely again, those are just memories and experiences that people just don't think that a group of nerdy D&D players would get together and do, right? Everyone, always thinks that, we're always hanging out in our parents' basement doing nothing, but you have to be a very social creature to get out in a group of 40, 30 people and play D&D and get married in front of them and stuff. That's a huge, huge thing for us.
It's cool.
Very cool.
I mean, it's a
awesome.
great memory. Great
Yep.
memory. Chris, did you want to say another great memory you had, or?
Another great memory.
Yeah.
Oh man, it was so long ago.
It's okay.
For me, I was just getting a lot of reminders, just going through all these files.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think our very
Memories.
first interactive, the first interactive in Vancouver, I think it was the first interactive we had at all, was the first one in
Mhm.
Vancouver, was really cool. It was basically a LARP interactive, but this was when we first had the Western Finesse Trading Company come up. So we had people come up playing their Duchy of Ernst characters, or local people who still have their Duchy of Ernst characters, and then some people playing their new characters. And we sort of divided them up. We said, okay, the Mokolad Consortium is getting in touch with all the Zeif player characters, and the Western Finesse Trading Company is getting in touch with all of the Duchy of Ernst characters, or anyone else who's from out of town. And they've given you a supply and a demand token. So we're selling this stuff. We're looking for this stuff. This is stuff that the Duchy exports, and we looked, in the gazetteer and everything. It's got stuff about what's exported. So we were like, this is legit stuff that was exported and imported from those places. So we got them together, and we obviously all trade in Zeif is done through the Mokolad Consortium, which means a cleric. Because a cleric of Mokol has to oversee each transaction. So we had our NPCs that were played by a bunch of the locals were priests, and there are a few other different NPCs as well, but that was mainly it. So they're presiding over all these things and letting people haggle and stuff like that. And basically no thing was worth more than the other, but the end game was to try and, you wanted to come away having traded what you're trying to get rid of for what you're trying to get. And you got cool stuff on your cert and extra experience if you managed to get what your party was looking for. And I thought that was very, very fun. It got people talking in a LARP, and people were exuberant and really, really into characters. We had some very flamboyant characters playing it out.
Yeah, we had some good NPCs in that one. I think Zara was in that one.
There was that orc.
Yeah, that
yeah,
warrior woman. Yeah.
Yeah, she. And she would be I remember her. She could get very offended by these Suloese people who came in and didn't know the 4 feet of the dragon, and so she was liable to get mad.
Yeah,
it was super fun. That was a big fave memory of mine.
Yeah, all the interactives, they're just
always
super fun.
Stick tight, guys. Stick tight, because we haven't done shout outs yet, man. Look, the time, we're already over 2 hours. The time just flies by, doesn't it, when you're enjoying the conversation?
I love
Just
it.
gonna
Doesn't even feel like it.
I could talk for 8 hours about this.
All right, so Anna's going to miss this. That's okay. But
Yeah,
I'm
I'll
gonna,
be back in a minute.
all right,
Okay.
I'll do this now before we do shout outs.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going stir crazy in my house. And something just came to me. I mean, you'll understand as we come. And Casey, this is for you. I only apologize for one thing, and that is the visual quality of the video. And guys and gals, when we're all done this is 1 minute of your life you can never get back.
Uh-oh.
Just note that. Here we go.
Why am I so
Here
scared?
we go.
Whew. Another fantastic job of scenery, if I may say so myself.
Yeah.
What can it be?
Yeah.
God, I'm amazing, aren't I?
Dun, 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 dun.
It's just a rain.
Okay.
Just walking around the table.
Oh my God, man, you would think Alan and Bill were here. The smell on this side of the table is awful. Wait, what's this?
What's this?
Mm. Bandit Kingdoms. Buy it.
Yep.
Buy it now.
Oh, that's right. I paid nothing. Well, now I owe you $5. Very nice.
Yes, there we go.
Double plug. Triple plug.
Right
He
on.
beat you to it this time.
Yes, so there you go.
That was
Buy it now.
1 minute of our lives we're not going to get back. You were
Exactly,
correct,
exactly. That was kind of, yes, just wanted to. Yeah, drawing tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, guys. Reaper drawing tomorrow night, but we haven't gotten to that yet. So let's do some in closings and what's going on in all our lives. We'll include everyone. So Casey, start it off, man. What's going on?
Well, first I want to thank John, Chris, and Carrie for answering my summons, my lighting of the beacon on the old Living Greyhawk Triad Yahoo group, which is still in existence. I had to use my AOL email account to activate that. That's how old that goes back. So definitely thank you guys. This was great. I love hearing the things you did different from us and how you approached it and the things you did the same. And it's interesting hearing what was a similar problem and what was completely different. So thank you guys very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
I look forward to hearing
this is a
more
blast.
in the future.
Definitely.
For me personally, my wedding was supposed to be on Saturday to my fiance. The virus has killed that. So instead we're going to take Friday and Monday off and just try and make a kind of a weekend of it. We're still going to try and have a nice dinner and those kinds of things. So I'm not going to be around much online this weekend. But other than that, I'm doing a Ghost of Saltmarsh once or twice a month online. We've moved to D20 or Roll20 and Discord. And then every Monday with Joe Selby of the Divers Triad and several of my friends, I'm now running an Essentials Kit, the Dragon of Ice Spire Peak adventure, also on Roll20. So that's kind of what I've been up to. And I really, really need to get to my BK 5th edition riding ever since Joe released his stuff. And I agree. I don't think Greyhawk is going DM's Guild. I don't know what's going on there. We all heard the news about Mike Merles, who's a former Living Greyhawk guy being gone. I just think there's something gumming up the works there at Wizards of the Coast related to Greyhawk. I think it's related to intellectual property, but again, that's its own different show. So I need to get cracking on Bandit Kingdoms 5e stuff.
That's cool.
So Christoph missed the ad. Oh.
Well, he'll have to go on and watch the replay.
You have to go on the replay. It was just a joke. It was a joke. So yeah, excellent, Casey. And sorry to hear that. But no, Casey will be back in next Saturday for something really special we'll talk about shortly. Absolutely.
The return of Garn.
The return of Garn again. Yes. So, Mike, what's going on, man? You're muted. You're mute. Oh, there you go.
Yep. Nope. Just had a really good time sitting by and listening to you guys' stories about putting this Zeif thing together on short notice. And I'm eager to go over this player's guide. It's going to inform a lot of the writing I do in the future on my blog.
Nice.
Because I do a lot of backlunish culture stuff.
Right on.
So very informative. I enjoyed this. I look forward to talking with you guys again in the future.
Absolutely. Awesome. Maybe you're going to do some playing together. You never know. Get some of that going.
Yeah.
And
well, yeah, thank you so much for being on. This has been awesome. Here's so many wonderful stories and realize that one of the most vital regions in the campaign, that it was only a couple of years, and I'm just like, yeah, I didn't even realize that until we started talking and you started talking, saying it was only a couple of years, and it's like, yes, well, so it's thank you so much for coming on. That's been amazing.
Oh, it's an honor.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So what am I up to right now? I'm working on the both the Atlas, the 576 Atlas, and also to upgrade it to, there will be a new revision, a bunch of changes and upgrades that people have told me. So thank you everyone who helped me making my maps better, so we can kind of have a better reference.
I'm
And
really
also,
stoked to see that.
Yeah, amazing
Yeah.
stuff.
Thank you, and also thank you so much to everyone who helped me on Patreon, so I can actually do this, so I don't have to work for the deliver stuff or sit and staple bread in a grocery store or something like that. So I can actually sit and work on the maps. I went up to 250 patrons. I've lost one, but I'm 249. So thank
Right
you
on.
so much. That's halfway to my ultimate goal. So it's kind of amazing. So
The
what
dream.
is, yeah, definitely. Yeah. So what is coming is the Atlas and the new revision coming. I'm also going to, I'm working on the of kind of the continental layout of Earth, and I moved into climate and ocean currents and stuff like that. So that is coming. It's well underway. I haven't, now I've been out for like a couple of months and people haven't yelled too much at me. So I'm thinking it's starting to mature, and so that is coming too. So it's getting in there. And also the base topographical or like elevation height map for the Flanies is underway too. So they're all coming really forward, so to speak. So there's a whole bunch of basic stuff. So the Atlas will be the first kind of real product that you can actually use. The other ones is basically building a new foundation for a new generation of maps.
Nice.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So this
How
20
tall are those barrier peaks?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I imagine that the barrier peaks and the yacht hills and the highest peak in the crystal mist are probably about 9-10 kilometers, about 30,000 feet almost, the
Wow.
tallest ones. So yeah, they're probably even taller mountains somewhere on Earth. It's a fantasy world. They need to be a little bit taller than real world, so to speak. So
For sure.
yeah, so a little bit beefier than that. So the elevation I'm working with is actually up to 10 kilometers in elevation difference. That's what I've been setting in for the height map, so to speak. And this is
Right on.
just a base, so I can take parts of this and bring it in for detailed work later, so to speak, for whatever resolution would be. So this is just a mile or two per pixel, just to get these kind of slopes that go on for hundreds of miles from middle of Furundi down to Lake near Div. That might be 500 feet difference over 200 miles or something like that. These kind of gradients that are too difficult to do when you do really close. So all the major rivers that flow for 1,000 miles, they actually flow downhill, things like
Mhm.
that. So that's
Right
what
on.
I'm working on in the base height map. So
Awesome.
yep.
Right on.
John, you want to shout out anything?
Yeah, definitely. Chris and I belong to a fairly recently formed artistic collective called the Paper Cut Arcade. So I wanted to plug that.
You can link it if you want to link a link in chat. Feel free.
For sure.
Chris, can you do that?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So yeah, basically the sort of core people who are in this collective make up an art project, and we invite people in the community to do it. And recently, of course, our stuff has had to be online. We often would normally meet in the free space in Chris's apartment building. But yeah, our next couple of them, obviously, or maybe further on, who knows, will be done by Twitch or something. We haven't actually done an online one yet. But yeah, I've just announced my first salon, which is going to be about post-human romantics. So the idea is you get into characters, some kind of post-human character, whether you're an AI or sort of a nanoswarm hive mind, or something that's being genetically engineered, or a clone, or what have you, something that humans made but you're not human, and thinking of them in terms of a person who's going to create some art, and we're specifically drawing on kind of the early 19th century romantics. So you've got your poets like Byron and Shelley, you've got
Wow.
people like people who are composing concertos and stuff like that. You've got painters.
Wow.
So what if a similar movement came about in the future when we have people who are post-human? be one of those people, create one of those works of art. That's the idea. And so we're going to be showcasing these sort of in-character post-human romantics things.
Wow.
I think in February next year. So this is huge lead time for it. But, you know, oil painting can take a long time. So we'll let whatever medium people want to do it in. Obviously, we have media that they didn't have in the 19th century, early 19th century, like photography and film, all sorts of stuff. So I'm excited to see what people come up with. I'll make my own project for it too, but I haven't even got a clue what I'm going to do. I just came up with the idea for it, and I'm going to let our local artists run with it.
Awesome.
My mind is brewing. I think I showed you my initial spark for it, but
yeah,
I can't wait.
But I just as a sort of a prelude to it for myself, I don't know if people are familiar with the role-playing game Over the Edge. 3rd edition Over the Edge is something that I kickstarted. Jonathan Tweet wrote it. He's one of the guys who wrote 3rd edition D&D. So this was a game that he made in the early 90s and sort of brought him his initial fame. He's kickstarted the 3rd edition of it. So I'm going to run my first 3rd edition Over the Edge campaign. I'm asking my player characters in that to be post-humans and artists. So we'll see what they do in character, and then we'll see what happens in the real world when people get hold of this idea. I think it'll be pretty fun.
Nice. Great to hear that you got something that exciting going on. That's awesome.
Oh, one other sort of shout out. This is not a great shout out, but I wanted to acknowledge a giant in the Living Greyhawk community in our area anyways passed away in December. I think it was December. Martin Knopf. He wrote a lot of adventures for the Dutch Ernst, and he wrote one, and he participated in interactives for Zeif as well. Awesome guy. Definitely me and Matt Atwell and Martin Knopf destroyed many a brain cell at CampCon together, and I miss him dearly. I'm sure we've lost many, but he's the one that stands out for me.
Really appreciate that. That's very
Thank you.
kind of you to say. Absolutely. Thank you. Excellent. Corey.
You know, not really much on my end. Just trying to get through this pandemic, trying to keep, trying to figure out what the heck to do for a LARP that got canceled for an entire season.
Oh, man.
Players involved and stuff. It's always interesting, and basically just now rocking out, 10-hour adventures with my friends on fantasy grounds to pass the days off. Play a little bit of D&D. So, that's about it. So I just hope everyone stays safe and hope we get through this as fast as humanly possible. And good luck to you guys down in the States. So,
thank you.
For the LARPers out there, there's a new trend I'm seeing: Star Wars. You throw up these Zoom backgrounds behind us like Corey's done. It looks like you're in one of the X-Wings or whatever. So I'm going to try one of those.
That's
in
sweet.
the coming week.
I actually run a Star Wars LARP here in town as well, and that one also got postponed by the 8K. So unfortunately,
you can do it through Zoom now. Just put everyone in an X-Wing.
That's going to be the only way to do it now. Yeah.
Very cool. Chris.
Hey, yeah, I think I have to double up on John's mention of the artist collective, the papercutarcade.ca. We've got John's big event coming next year, but we also have some events planned for this year. There's one this weekend, I think May 3rd, it ends. We're going to have an online salon. It's all interactive fiction with a theme of apocalypse. We chose that before the pandemic, by the way. We're not so crass. But we have artists and writers working on some interactive fictions or games. And we do those a couple times a year, and you can check them all out on the website. And if anybody wants to get involved, we are primarily Vancouver based, but we have had artists come and work with us from the US and the UK already. So
and now that this is weird, but now that we're forced to go online, we're like, this was a thing we did for our local community, but why limit it to that now? Everyone's going to be able to see it on Twitch or wherever we decide to host it, and we might as well accept submissions from anyone anywhere.
And we do.
You need any Twitch help, I'm here. So just let me know if you need any pointers. And think about this: the cons are the same way. The cons are expanding out too. So because of that as well. So
yeah, well, we'll definitely tap you if we need help.
Excellent. Guys, thank you. All right, what's going on with us here? All right, tomorrow night we start a new adventure. We started Adventure 878 on the. That is correct. The 878th adventure, guys. On the trail.
Insane.
Yes. Out of. It is. It's just. That's now you know why my mind is going crazy. Out of Altamira, the actual guild mistress, mayor of Altamira herself, will put the huntsman on this mission. So from the Bounty Hunters Guild of Altamira, and we'll start that one tomorrow night. All right. Then Sunday, this should be another good discussion on Gabbin. Gabbin 91, the Wild Coast. Okay, we're gonna keep that based a lot on. Bishop, thanks, man. Thank you for that cheer as always. Thank you so very much. The Wild Coast will be a campaign based, but we'll talk about a lot of published source. That's why I have From the Ashes and Slavers, probably the two best published source references to find Wild Coast information. If you don't count just the glossography, there's a lot of details in those. So we're going to do that on Sunday night, and I know I think I may have Anna and Jason Savota joining me for that one. And maybe anyone else who's interested. And then what are we doing next Wednesday? We're going to do a merger of ideas on. We don't have any special guests, so Legends and Lore. We're going to do the following next Wednesday. We're going to do an entire era. We're going to do From the Ashes. We're going to discuss the wars and everything going on from the Ashes box set. Maybe some Rary the Trader thrown in there. Maybe some all that era. Yeah, you like that, Mike?
Very cool.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to discuss. Anna, Mike, and me we'll add a little special guest here and there, an expert to that area. So a very great era to discuss. And so,
If only you guys knew Gary Holian.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Yep.
Listen, I asked Gary if I did a show just on Saints and Death Knights. Okay.
You'd have to do it.
He said he would consider it. So
Okay,
I'm
good.
trying.
Spine Castle.
I am
Spine Castle
trying.
should get him out of the woodwork.
Yeah,
Yep.
I am so trying.
Yeah, we
to,
just have to do one on Death Knights now. That's the
Sure. Yeah. So Christoph, absolutely, you can hop on. Yes, but the big event, the big event will be a week from Saturday, right? We want to see what that is, and that is I'm DMing for at least 5 Living Greyhawk.
I think we're at 6 now.
Who's the 6th?
Andy McCullough, a diver's triad after Joe Selby. He's working on the character. I've been relaying all of Jay's home rules to this group of guys so that when they send their characters to Jay, he doesn't need to spend a lot of time fixing them for his home rules.
I'm 1E2E old school, guys, with tabletop and all right, I'll keep it down. I got a cat in here too. Okay, a cat finally came in here. Yeah, so my son. So
yeah, but we're at 6 right now.
Joe
Brett said he'll
Selby,
try and watch.
Casey Brown, Vernon Vincent. Oh my God, Ron Lundeen, Susan Threadgill. Susan, I'm sorry, I always say Treadmill.
That's all right.
And
close.
Andy McCullough. Perfect.
Andy McCullough, right?
That is going to be an awesome, awesome game. The Mongrels of the Putrid Tongue, a little homebrew adventure. It'll be out of Greyhawk City and into Cairn Hills. So.
Oh, nice. 5th and 6th level PCs.
Yeah, 5th, 6th
like
level
the
PCs.
a great sweet spot.
Yeah, Shane, you can leave the cat in. There's no big deal. All right, and then the only other thing that we have that's scheduled and we know what it is the Gabbin the day after. Real quick, I'll have Bill the Master Crafter and Brian Sublime on, and we're going to talk about starting a miniature tabletop DMing game, how to do it on a budget, how to keep the money down, and some tricks of the trade from those guys. One's my 3D printer guy, one's my miniature painter, and my crafting expert, and that's how we make all our scenery look so good. So yeah, thanks, Frank. Thank you so very much. So what a fantastic night, guys. Thank you so very much for it. I know we ran late, but I appreciate it. Looking forward to keeping this going. Please, if you have any other triad regions that you think they'd be interested, we want to talk them up. We want to talk them up as quickly as possible. I got a little feedback there. I'm not sure who that's coming from. That's okay.
Yeah, if you're still in contact with Tim, please reach out to him because we've had
Thank
Brit
you.
on. That's one circle member, but it'd be great to get more formal
Yeah, we
circle
would,
members
we would
on.
love to have them on. So anyone in those triads. So
Christoph, mute.
is that Christoph? I haven't invited Chris. Who do you think it is? All right. Well, I'm gonna do this, and we can keep on talking, guys, because Christoph wants to come on and say hi to you. So hold on, if I can figure out which button to
I'm
hit.
aligned to Christoph's honor then.
Thank you all.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't know where that's coming from. It's weird.
might be John's.
No, I have it turned. I have my mic turned off.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
It's not me.
And it's definitely quiet here. Yeah.
We're getting a reverb.
Nothing here.
It's just weird. Huh. I don't think it's me. I'm just checking to make sure.
Yeah.
Guys, hope you had fun.
Yeah, that was great.
So much fun. That was awesome. And so good to connect with you again, Corey.
Yeah.
So good to see you guys.
Super good.
Yeah, stay on. We're gonna raid in a minute or two. I was gonna wait to hit this up, and I'm gonna do the new real NBA ad after this. Okay. So I want to do that one more time. In fact, I'll cut to that right now. So we'll cut to that. And here's that. From this, I'm going to start setting the raid up. We're going to do Fabled 42, guys. Chris Solo is a good guy, and he has a good game. He's 5e. So we're going to hit Fabled 42.
Looks like a good setup for Salt Marsh.
We're getting up there, man. Pretty good number. 44 is a good number. All right, 10 seconds. You guys all have a good night, and let's raid and have a good one. See you soon. See you tomorrow night.
Thanks again, guys. Thanks, Anna.
Thanks. That was awesome. Good night.
You guys can hang on if you we've raided. We've raided. It's done here. Let me turn this off.